Hey everyone, and welcome to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 186. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, up, and away.
And Connor's here too.
Yeah, I'm still here.
This is a DC Comics podcast. Every week we get together, we talk about DC Comics. This is actually a weird week because DC decided to unload like half of the month's books in 1 week. And as a result, we are having two episodes pretty close together. We're having an episode today, which is a normal time, and then in 2 days' time we're recording again. So the books I'm about to tell you that are in this episode are only half of the books. I will tell you at the end of the show what's coming in the second half. But the books that we're going to talk about today are as follows. Doomsday Clock, issue 12, so that's about 90 minutes of the show. right there.
It actually happened.
Yes. Suicide Squad, issue 1, which is off by, I would just play my button.
Tom Taylor.
Then we have Batman 85, which is actually the end of the main Batman run for Tom King.
Thank mercy.
And then we have Justice League 38, which is the penultimate issue in Scott Snyder's Justice League run. There's a lot of endings kind of happening. And beginnings. Batman Superman number 5. Both Justice League and Batman Superman kind of loosely tie into the thing that's starting next, which is Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen issue 1. So we're going to talk about that. And then we have a couple of new Black Label books we're going to talk about on this part as well, which is Wonder Woman, Dead Earth issue 1, and The Low Woods issue 1. So that is the books we're going to talk about today. Anything that's missing that you expect us to cover, because we normally do, don't worry, it's in the next episode, which you'll be getting in a couple of days' time. So it's not too much of a wait.
So just so we couldn't put Doomsday Clock and Harleen on the same week because we wouldn't have been able to read anything else.
Exactly.
Or talk about anything else.
I mean, that would have been a tactic, though. Let's say we just did, like, episode 1 was Doomsday Clock, Harleen, and, like, Suicide Squad issue 1, and then everything else was in the second one.
Probably would have evened out.
It probably would have been, but this was more even looking on the page. So.
Yeah, and we could have put Harleen first over Doomsday, but let's be real. We're living in a post-Doomsday Clock world now.
There was no way in hell Doomsday Clock was not getting the priority.
Yeah. Well, you could have, but yeah, we could have kept him waiting. Could have, It's like you don't start the show with the main event, Pete.
Like I don't mean to like mock the books I'm about to mention, but yeah, there's almost a troll quality. Like, now we'll do Doomsday Clock separate. We're going to talk about Metal Men first. We're going to talk about.
Sorry, because Matt just said, "Oh, you don't start the show with the main event." This is like episode 186, and literally every episode has started with the main event.
Yes,
but I'm talking in a booking sense of combat sports, Connor. You don't start with the fight that everyone's expecting.
Yes.
Keep them waiting.
Alternatively, almost every podcast I've ever listened to has always started with their main thing. Like, podcasts don't work the same way. You hook them in with the thing they care about, and then they hopefully stick around for the rest of the shit.
Do you want to be like everyone else, Pete, or do you want to stand out?
I want people to try the show.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say that our Rise of Skywalker review went live, and my wife saw it and went, "That's the same length as the movie." I go, "Exactly." She goes, "People watch?" I go, "They do." So,
They do. Yeah. The three of us talked about Rise of Skywalker. If you're caring about that, if you're a Star Wars person, we already got that out of our system, and it's available, and it's 2.5 hour glory on the YouTube channel. Or if you want to find the audio feed, if you're obviously listening to it's not on this feed. This is the Comics from the Multiverse feed. You can find it on the Mail Fuzz Movies podcast feed. So go on.
Yep.
Find
See,
that.
it's about the average length of a Joe Rogan podcast, which perfect for gym listening. So you guys putting on some extra winter weight,
Hey,
I like how you assume a large majority of our comic book audience goes to the gym.
I would say I see fit nerds all the time. It's a good look. Yeah. That said, or they're just wearing Flash stuff to the gym. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's very possible. On the topic of episode leads, though, it is worth mentioning that we weren't sure exactly how long last week's was because there was a couple of bits to cut out and there was bonus bits that went up online.
Ridiculously long is the answer.
It wasn't even just that we broke the record, because see before last week, like, we'd hit 3 hours a few times, and I think the record was like 3 hours 12 minutes, and that beat the previous record by like 3 minutes. So it was always like a little incremental thing. It was never that was clearly the ceiling for typically what we'd as long as we'd go. Last week we almost hit 4 hours. It was like 3 hours 57 minutes. So people seem to like that. That's not going to be a regular thing. Once in a blue moon, when DC hit us with the bombardment.
13, 14 books.
Basically, if we'd done all of this in one show,
we would have beat it if we'd done all this in one show.
Oh, we could have doubled it.
Yeah,
easily. We could have been 6 hours, man.
I feel like it would have been...
I like how Matt's double of almost 4 hours is 6 hours.
Yeah.
Well, but we're gonna cut out because I'm talking about a recording time.
Sure.
Because
I feel like even without Doomsday Clock, this week would have still probably hit 4 hours, and then you add on Doomsday Clock, so we would have easily exceeded last week. But that's why
it's gonna be light and crisp. It's gonna be mainly Doomsday Clock, and then we get out, right?
I mean, yeah, but you say that as if Doomsday Clock won't be, Rise of Skywalker volume. Sorry?
Huh? I think we can do Doomsday Clock in 10 minutes.
Bullshit. We've got 46 pages of Doomsday Clock to go through, and we're going to do it page by page.
I'm wearing a Superman shirt. There's no way in hell.
I think 20 seconds a page is pretty reasonable.
All right. Well, is there any news?
No, there's actually no news. They were merciful this week. Probably because it's right before Christmas. Yeah. So no news is good news right now.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing with Doomsday Clock is obviously we're going to talk about how it ends. We're going to talk about how the conflict between Superman and Manhattan wraps up. We're going to talk about how things might be brought back or the world reshaped, and then of course Johns drops a megaton on us at the end. We were going to be talking about possible future things for probably half an hour because he drops some that are clearly just jokes for far in the future that he has no control over, but then a few things that might actually be loosely had plans.
At least one or two, I would say, that are coming in the near future.
All I'm going to say right now, we're going to talk about this at all now until we get to it in the book. All I'm going to say right now is that now Kevin Feige is in charge of Marvel Comics. He and Geoff Johns are actually old friends. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, didn't they both come up in Warner's together?
Yeah, they both work for Richard Donner. They're old buddies.
Yeah.
So even before we start talking about the book, I was reading an interview that Johns did on Newsarama, about the issue. And they asked him about the delays, as you would, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
And a couple of interesting things. He said, "Do you know what? Yeah, there were some delays. We didn't really want to. I was busy. So he kind of took all the blame. He said he was working on it as much as he could, but he said he was working on Wonder Woman 84. Mm-hmm. He was working on the Stargirl show, and he said he was working on Green Lantern stuff outside of comics that we'll learn more about soon. So presumably the HBO Max show.
Yeah.
But on top of that, he threw editorial under the bus a tiny bit as well, where they insisted that he start when it did. It started in November. He actually wanted to wait until April and get a bit ahead, and they were like, "No, we're doing it in November."
Yeah, I mean that would have. I mean, ultimately, that wouldn't have really saved that much of the
It would have cut out 5-6 months total.
Right.
Well,
Connor would have only missed 3 episodes of it instead of all of it.
Well, no, think about it, right? So it started in November 2017, right? The first 3 issues were monthly, right?
Yeah.
If they'd waited another 3 months, because by the time we got to April, we'd only had maybe 5 issues total. So if they'd waited till April, it would have maybe had, the next 2 in the bank by the time they came out later that year. I don't know if it would have actually affected when it ended, necessarily. We'd have still had the every other shipping for at least the second half of the whole book, I think.
We would, but we'd have probably got 5 or 6 out straight away.
Yes. I mean, really what they should have done is waited till November 2018. That's when they should have started it.
I mean, in an ideal.
How are you?
Yeah. But hey, whatever. It is what it is. And it's been a hell of a 2 years. It's been the main event for 2 years now. And contrary to maybe some other opinions on the internet, I don't think it's wavered. I feel like it's been a main event for us every time it's come out.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the only thing that has diminished its effect in any way is editorial after a certain point going, do you know what, we can't wait any longer.
Yeah, so that brings me up to a headline that I read this week too. John's going, I'd love to write a Justice Society book, and I was like, yeah, no, duh, you're Geoff Johns. Duh, but I don't know if that's in the cards if what we think is going on with Snyder, right?
Yeah, although Snyder's apparently going to be doing a Crisis and/or Metal too, so maybe he's going to be busy anyway. So
that's fine. Give Johns. Hopefully, all of his work on the big screen, small screens wrapped up. Let him get back to comics because he is my favorite writer. Like,
Yeah, well, he's got a co-showrunner on Stargirl that was just announced like a month ago, and obviously Wonder Woman 84. I mean, his work on that, I presume, is mostly done.
Yeah, which explains. I didn't realize until just now he was so hands-on. Like, I thought he was just a producer.
I mean, I knew about
name.
Stargirl because obviously I knew he was showrunner.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was as involved in Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah, which now explains Max Lord.
Yeah.
Right, because Johns loves that dude as a foil. So, yeah.
I think it's time for Johns to come home. I think it's nice. It's nice that he's developing all these movies and TV shows, but honestly, I think I'd rather them doing a couple of ongoing books.
Well,
I'm being selfish.
We've got his 3 Jokers to come, and we know Cabot's been drawing that because we've seen a reasonable handful of pieces.
But again, it got pulled from solicits. That was a big news item.
It never really got pulled. It hasn't been solicited.
Yeah, it was never solicited.
Right. Well, yeah, but it was expecting to be solicited, and it still hasn't.
Well, to be fair though, I think the last update on it was that it's like almost finished. Like the art's almost finished, so presumably, at least when we get it, it will be consistent because
it'll just be straight out. It's a similar story with Batman Catwoman that we were expecting it in the first quarter of next year, and it wasn't in the solicits, but it's still coming.
That's okay.
I will say this.
Okay, I need a break.
The end of this book, and I'm not going to talk about anything in the ending yet. At the end of this book, there's several things that feels like Johns might be setting up for more of his own projects later on, which fills me with a bit of joy because I don't want him to give up on comics. I want him to stick around, and I want him to write more comics. I want him to just. Let's be honest.
It's interesting that you read it that way because I took it more in the way that Morrison does stuff, where he's just like, "Here you go, your turn now."
Yeah, but
some of it is
Johns
like that.
Always
but
follows up. Like,
yeah.
He seated Jessica Jones at the end of that, or Jessica Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
I got my writers that write too much crossed there. He set up Cruz at the end of his Green Lantern run, and then introduced her in Justice League.
Yeah,
right?
probably about
a
year later or so, maybe 2.
Right, and then because he was so busy on other things, he let Humphreys do the Green Lanterns book, and that's where we get most of our love of Cruz from, right? So he does that, but he still, when he introduces it, it's not like Morrison where he's like, "Oh, hey, y'all want to use Professor Pig? Here you go. Here's a cool new character."
I don't think because obviously we still know 3 Jokers is coming. He's talked about Batman Earth 1 Volume 3 as well, which is him and Frank are working on next. I don't think 3 Jokers is the last he was in continuity DC stuff. I think he's always going to have the next thing. There's always going to be the next thing that he's going to be doing.
Yep. He's going to fix Flash.
The Flash Rebirth.
Yeah.
Rebirth.
The Flash Afterbirth. Wait.
The worst part is I nearly made the same joke and then thought, no, I'm not going to.
I am. We're in a post DC or a post Doomsday Clock world. We're in a post Rise of Skywalker world. I'm letting it all flow now.
Oh God, this has been you holding back.
Yeah. You guys know this. I love Mr. Gold and Guy Gardner. Y'all should have seen this coming.
It's got a point.
Yeah. Oh dear. All right. So I guess we should start talking about Doomsday Clock. We should get into it.
Yeah.
So this was a beefy issue. It was a little bit more expensive, of course. Although the page count increase was more than the price increase, if that makes sense.
Real quick. So I go to get my comics. I see a really cool Legion cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "Oh, I'm gonna get this one." They ring up, and it's $1 more. I go, "When did the price on Legion go up?" And my friend who's standing behind me also picked up. He goes, "No, it's the same price." Stupid me picked up a cardstock one. And now it was already too late. And it's at the end of the day, it's an extra $1. When you're dropping that kind of coin that I did this past week, because everything that came out, it's an extra $1.
It's everything that came out, because obviously there was a lot that came up, but there was a lot of oversized, bigger books. Harleen, Killer Smile, I think was overpriced. And I get things like Last God, which is that's like $5 as well.
Yeah. So at that, but I was like, it doesn't even feel like, because my shop bags and boards everything on the shelf, just keep it nice. But it didn't feel any different when I'm holding them in my hands. It was just a cooler.
Well,
cover.
This is the sad truth is that I think next year is the year that Marvel probably goes to $4.99 for regular ongoing books, and DC will
Did they not
resist.
already?
Well, no, I mean they
No,
are for
not
number
all.
ones. They are for certain like events, but their ongoing books are still $3.99 past
Okay.
issue 1. But I feel like next year's the year that probably shifts, at least for a lot of them. Amazing Spider-Man by the end of the year is probably going to be $4.99 per every issue. And DC, like every time this happens, DC will hold out for the most part for a couple of years, and then they'll eventually shift to, because that's just the way money works. But
Good thing Jason Aaron's done with Thor, because if I can't read that until trade, I'm okay.
do you know the thing is, though? See, if you do want to read Marvel, like, their trades come out so quick and they're so comparatively cheap versus the single issues that there's a lot of incentive to just wait when it comes to Marvel.
Yeah, their trade system is so different to DC's. DC's is entirely based around the bookstore market. We will not flood it all at once. We'll incrementally put these out. One a week maybe.
Marvel
Marvel's
don't
just
give enough.
as soon as they're done, just chuck him out.
Yeah, because I mean, right now, like I say, I was saying before we started. Anyway, there's all the Comixology end of year Christmas sales and all that are on. But which, for the record, the DC one is like line wide. Everything released before like September this year, trade wise, is like $5. So go and knock yourself out. But a lot of the Marvel trades, when they go on sale, the regular 5 and 6 issue ones, like they go on sale for like $3 a trade, and that's like. That's less than what the single issues cost when they're coming out.
DC tends to bring all their trades down to the same amount. Now, this year they've actually experimented a little, where the bigger trades have gone up to, they've cost a bit more still on sale. Except when you get to these big line-wide sales, like they did a Black Friday or now, where they just bring them all down regardless.
The only exceptions right now for the trades is that some of the ones where there's both regular trades and the big, like, sort of more omnibus-sized trades, the omnibus ones aren't necessarily on sale. Like, I was looking at Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, for example. All the regular trades are down at the $5 each. The omnibuses are just kind of sitting there at their usual price.
Yeah, so that's what
otherwise,
they've been doing. But Marvel just they take off like a percentage of the book. So if it was a higher price book to begin with, it'll still be significantly more than one of the smaller ones.
Yeah, but they're regular sized trades though. Now, admittedly, Marvel's is not line wide. It's only stuff that came out this year. Plus, there's like an Epic Collection sale. But the stuff that came out this year, the trades are like, they're dirt cheap. So if you want to read this year's Marvel books, like, you can do it for a really reasonable price, at least for the first 2/3 of the year.
Have to go and have a look.
Yeah. But regardless, yeah. So books are obviously Doomsday Clock has been, $4.99 for the majority of its run. Went up a little bit for this last issue. But we'll get into it then. So. Because there's a lot to go through.
Are we only just starting?
Yeah, we're only just starting.
And I'm going through it again. That's why people are watching. I have a stupid smile on my face.
Yes, of course you do.
Yeah.
So page 1, just it kind of like it's Manhattan's origin again. Him sort of thinking about that is the end is nigh.
Yeah, so I still haven't finished the Watchmen TV show because I've been bad at this, but there's a lot of crossover in my brain that I thought was from Doomsday Clock, but it's really from the show. Because the show handles the material so well. So then I had to remember if this was a show thing or a book thing.
Yeah. There's definitely
with
some
so.
interesting parallels once you've finished both between the two of them.
I'll probably do that Monday since I'm off.
You watched episode 8 though, right? The Manhattan one?
Yes.
That was so good.
Yeah. With the egg.
Yes.
And yeah.
All that stuff.
So good. So good.
So yeah, there's some interesting parallels between them, but
yes.
So yeah, I mean, so it starts with just sort of him remembering his origin essentially, and this is the moment where Superman, because Superman was on his way at the end of the last issue, right? So Superman's already there. He's facing him down, and Manhattan says, "Hello, Superman," and Superman says, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, he doesn't even know who he is yet."
No, yeah. And remember, this all started with a nightmare from Clark, and Clark doesn't have nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is that coming to fruition.
What I like it, but this is obviously we're going to get to the point here where Superman's going to essentially inspire him and sort of try and make Manhattan feel hope. Is he does all that without knowing who he is, knowing where he comes from, knowing what his backstory is. He doesn't know anything about him, but he just tries to inspire him to be good regardless. It doesn't matter. Like,
right.
Because this is it. Manhattan offers him a binary choice. I'm the one you're going to destroy, or I'm the one who's going to destroy everything. So it's basically stop me or I ruin everything.
Right.
And someone's like, "No, that's bullshit. Third option."
Yeah. Because we have the Markovians and the Russian heroes all showing up. We got Geoforce there. Black Adam shows up with the Kandak crew, and they're all there to sort of take in Superman for.
The Conduct Crew sounds like a cheap TV show from there.
I feel like that's his version of the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the Conduct Crew. Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know. When you put crew at the end of something, I kind of imagine like the team from Fast and the Furious standing next to their cars.
Uh-huh.
All right. So now I'm imagining Black Adam, and funny enough, The Rock, who's going to play Black Adam, is in Fast and the Furious. But like,
but Black Adam will never have to flex a cast off his arm because he's got magic. So,
that's true. But I mean, does that make him better or worse? I'm not sure.
Magic. It's always better.
I don't know, man. I love those Fast movies because they're so dumb.
But they'd be better with magic.
They drive cars through buildings, Connor. It is magic. What are you talking about?
the Rock redirected a torpedo that was skidding on ice with his foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the thing that happened. Anyway, so
yeah.
Yes, and as all this is happening, because there's a lot of Manhattan narration through this, so there's a lot of things where he's just sort of, again, he's doing that thing where it's this date and this thing is happening. He mentions Superman picking up the car, back to the origin, the first origin, right? And we get some pieces around the world. The Justice League are just quote unquote missing because, as we know, they all went to Mars and effectively got disintegrated. And we're hearing about all these various crews around the world kind of coming in to do these things. Superman's still fighting all these villains on his own. And then we cut to Rorschach, we cut to Reggie, and we have, obviously, the red cap does not have any writing on it, but I mean, it's very clear what this guy's supposed to be,
I'm going
right?
to fill it in.
Yeah. And he starts beating up Reggie, assuming that he's a looter because he's looking at a TV through a window, and Alfred comes to save him. And this is the weird thing, the ending of this book maybe does kind of give us a way of like explaining why things don't line up with what we've been reading in the comics up until now. Now, I'm not saying it's neat or that was always intended, but there's a door, there's a back door there.
There's I think that the stuff we'll get to with Earth 3 could answer it as well. That could just be the explanation in a weird way.
Which I love, and when we get to that, I love that writer's just going, it's comics, bro.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it addressed it, though, because I was like, what the hell? What's going on here?
Also, Earth 3 was actually just in Young Justice, and that had a different, take on what was happening there as well. So, a lot of things going on. So Alfred kind of saves him, and tries to give Reggie's mask back and says, "Look, hey, you make this something different. Make this mean something." And he's like, "No. That's the monster's face, the monster's name. I'm not having this." And he gets really morbid and depressed and like really pessimistic, as Manhattan's also monologuing about this. And there's a big, because there's two-page spreads in this. Obviously, there's the big one later, but here we have one that's just all the villains who are attacking Superman, to the point where you don't even see Superman in the page. You just see all the villains.
He's swarmed.
Yeah.
And and I'm looking at some people. You got Deathstroke's ex-wife. Was it Madeline?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's there. A lot of people I don't recognize, but I'm sure they are people.
Giganta up there, obviously.
Yeah, Giganta we recognize, obviously.
Yeah. But you also have Keenan. He's up there.
Oh, yeah, your Superman's up top. That's kind of cool.
Yep, he's up there. You have Black Adam. You got Vostok's getting thrown into a building. Yeah. It's a really cool page. It looks like Terra's over there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Shining Knight. There's a...
Yeah, it's a great
cool
page, Frank.
It's chaos, personified. In DC, it looks like too.
Yeah,
so,
Reggie's just got on about how the world's drowning in hate and anger. It gets very, very pessimistic as Lois is seeing in the news that Superman's fighting all these enemies alone because the Justice League isn't here. Like they're all dead essentially. Right. I mean, Batman's around. We see Batman in the next page, but everyone else is essentially dead right now. And Batman shows up to Reggie and apologizes for not sort of taking his warning seriously, and it essentially tries to convince him to take the mask because that's what his mentor at the hospital was kind of trying to do. Is like, no, make it your own thing.
Yep.
And so this is where things really start to get interesting. Though, is a car flies from the fight that's happening with Superman. A car flies over into this alleyway where a mother and daughter are sort of hiding behind a dumpster. and Superman just jumps in, and it's very reminiscent. The angle, you don't get the full shot of it, but the angle he catches it is very similar to the.
It's very
reverse,
hinted.
actually.
Yeah.
It's reversed.
Yeah, in the sense that he's holding it with his hands, backwards, holding it back as opposed to throwing it forward.
Oh,
There's a
sure.
reversal
Okay, I
in
mean,
that
I
But
just
it's still a call out to
yeah,
that.
I just meant the angle,
action one.
the angle of the car I meant, and the way is the same as the old Action Comics cover. And Superman starts pleading with Manhattan, whoever you are, help these people. And Manhattan, and he's very cold, is like, I don't help you. And it's not that he doesn't want to. He's like, I don't know. Like, I've seen this before.
I got very irritated with Manhattan here.
He's like, I've already seen
That's
this.
the
I
purpose.
don't,
Yeah.
so I can't.
I don't
essentially,
help you. Yeah, but no, yes, you can. You control your destiny, man. Change the future.
Man,
You know?
those panels of Superman, like blood dripping from his nose, and he says, I
Yep.
can't do this alone. And he's just pleading for help. Really. And this is all ramping up, because this is the thing. The issue starts, and Manhattan's like, it's 10 minutes until,
Doomsday,
basically, yeah. And then here it says 4 minutes now, less than 4 minutes, and I'm like, oh, damn, we're really ramping up. We're getting really close to the bone in this. And he's remembering the giant squid and all that stuff from Watchmen. Lex is with Lois, and he's getting his vaporizer, vibrational emitter out. That's what it was. I'm just trying to remember what it was called.
same thing.
And yeah, and we see the comedians with the Miami Marionette. More of that Batman and Reggie scene plays out, and again, so Batman's making his speech as Superman and Manhattan are also conversing. He's like, how can you stand there and not do anything? And Manhattan tells him enough to understand that my world is gone. My world once had a chance at peace, but after I left, it lost it. It fell into war, and it's burning now, even kind of thing. And worth mentioning, the end of that pulse says 12 seconds. So we're really we're getting to the point here where it's about to happen. Whatever's going to happen is within pages. So reading this, it's really ramping up, and you're just sitting there going, "Oh my god, like what's about to go down?" But yeah, and Manhattan ends this page by saying, I changed your life. The death of your parents is my fault, and I did that out of curiosity. And like you've got a choice, and again, it's back to this binary choice that he opened the book with. Will you destroy me for it, or will I defend myself even though I shouldn't, right? And then next page, it drops a 9-panel grid. It gives you 3 panels. It's Superman looking angry, ramping up for a punch. Manhattan closes his eyes, which looks like he's going to accept death, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's interesting in itself. In that he's just before presented this choice: will I let you kill me because I know I should, suffer for my sins, or will I fight back regardless? And he's accepted his fate here. Yeah,
which does imply that he does at least feel some amount of guilt over it. Like there's some amount of understanding.
And I think the reason this is so interesting is this is the first time Manhattan has made a choice in decades.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's as far as he's concerned, everything he does, he's already done. So it's not a choice. It's it goes back to I don't help you. I've already seen it.
It's
now this leads up to where he can't see anything. So now.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's almost like because he can't see it, he doesn't know what it is. It's like the only way he was ever going to be able to make a choice again was by not knowing what was going to happen. Like the uncertainty had to be there. So the last panel on this page is Superman's fist coming towards the camera, as it were,
which we'd seen, in Manhattan's visions of what he knows what happens. It's his last moment, but in great John Zian and Frank fashion. Superman's not coming at Manhattan.
No.
You turn the page.
He punches,
and he's knocking out Posar, the evil Firestorm.
Posar.
Yeah, he's right behind him. He's punched right over Manhattan's shoulder. And Manhattan's, why would you defend me? He's confused.
I don't know. Yep.
And
I just love Superman.
Oh no shit! I'm shocked.
No, but I don't know what to think about this. But what I do know right now, you got to make a choice. So stop standing around. Get into action and let's go.
Yeah, and he's outright like, you said it was this or that,
right?
But that's
the third choice.
Yeah, and he appeals to his world. He says, "Look, these photographs that keep sort of materializing. Who is she? Who's this woman? You clearly care about her." Is like maybe you can save her world. Maybe maybe the reason why everything seems to end. Maybe it takes everything out of you to save your world, and presents this idea. In Manhattan, as all the villains are coming towards Superman, and he actually disintegrates like Black Adam and stuff, and he just says, "Yes, I understand now. Everything ends." In the very next page, is we just get panels of various people all kind of turning blue. The panels go black. The Superman logo on his chest is kind of it's almost the end of it.
It's the last thing to fade.
It's almost like the end of Infinity War. It's just the dusting of the S logo, and then they really saved a lot of money on this page here in terms of the production, because this all black page I'm sure took a lot of effort.
It's an essential page.
but yeah, normally I'd be mad, but this is essential for what's to come.
I'm just cracking a joke.
I actually love the way that this is a full single page of black, and then the next page is all black as well, but it's split into the 9-panel grid. So there's nothing, and then the universe is there. It's just not filled yet. The structure is there. It's just empty.
Yeah, and of course
then we get the reality.
Yeah, the page after that starts in black again, but then of course you see like a sort of planet kind of forming and crumbling. It's Krypton. I mean, it's clear it's Krypton from where it goes. But you see the ship, and it begins with a child, and we see different versions of Clark's ship land in different parts of history, implying that there's universes out there where he landed in prehistoric times, where he landed in caveman times and stuff like that. Oh. And of course, the last one is kind of maybe the real original one that we all think of. Is
which is straight from Secret Origin, which I love, and this is where it really starts to come together, and why I love DC Comics. Yeah,
because we're seeing more of that car ride, the nightmare where Clark's parents,
with his parents,
we're going to end up dying, and we go back to this moment, and this, remember we lost our shit issue 6 or 7, whatever it was, when Manhattan just
moved the lantern.
Yeah, just casually said, "I moved the lantern," and now Alan Scott never became Green Lantern, and so he says that again. Then the very next panel, it's July 16th, 1940. I moved the lantern back, and it's like, he just fixed it.
Yep, he just fixed it,
just
and
like
then
that.
The ripple effect of what this causes for Clark, for the greater DC universe.
Yeah,
I love that as someone that really gets into the continuity of stuff, right? Like, so much so that sometimes it's to my own detriment, right? But the fact that there's an Earth with Superman but no Justice Society, and how much of a mess it's become, right? But then there's an Earth that Superman exists because of the Justice Society, right? That story.
More importantly than Superman exists, I think it's Superboy exists.
Right, that's what I'm getting.
We're jumping ahead here, right? Because the very next panel, to show the ripple of this, the very next panel is, again, Clark in the car with the parents in front. And instead of saying whatever he said originally, Jonathan says, "Hey, my father used to tell me stories of the Justice Society of America. And, that was decades ago, but if they were willing to go out and show who they were, maybe you should too." And it's basically inspiring Clark to maybe have the courage to be Superboy.
And it's also a refutation of the Man of Steel stuff.
I was going to get to that, yeah.
Yeah. Hide who you are and whatnot. Which, again, the whole metaverse concept is that's an Earth where Clark hides who he is, right? And look at how dark it gets.
It makes it equally valid in a way, and it makes every Elseworlds valid.
Right, exactly. But here, this is the mainline continuity, right? This is the one. This is what happens because his dad's like, "Hey, there was this wartime heroes, and do it, be the hero." And because he has this in his mind now, the car accident goes completely different. Yeah,
because he saved them. He jumps out and saves them as Superboy. And we start seeing more ripple effects where it's like, because the Justice Society exists again, so does Superboy, and because Superboy exists again, he inspires the Legion. And Ozymandias starts freaking out because the Legion ring disappears, and this is the thing, is obviously we'll get to this in a minute, but the version of Satin Girl we had in this book no longer exists, because the version we see in a minute is actually the one that's currently happening in Bendis' book, right? Johnny Thunder disappears, realizing that he became the Thunderbolt himself.
The Thunderbolt.
And
he says, "See you."
And Ozymandias is just sort of standing like, "John, what are you doing? What's happening here?" And all the villains are beating up Clark. We're back in the same moment. Black Adam's still there. It's almost as if reality's rewritten and caught up. I think Dani even says that. Yeah, the future and the past are free, blah, blah, blah. It's but they've actually caught up back to the same part of the timeline, and just when Clark's down, because the actual Justice League are all still in Mars. We find out later, because they all return soon, because we get a panel of them saying, "Oh, they're just back from Mars." Superman turns around, then we've got a big double-page spread, where he says, "Better late than never," and it's the Legion and the JSA all assembled. and it's both the JSA that we've been seeing in Justice League, but also the other characters that weren't there in Justice League. You know, the Stargirl, your legacy,
the John Justice to say.
Right, you have Liberty Bell, and I mean you have Wesley Dodds there. You got Mr. Terrific. You got Jade and Obsidian, Power Girl's there. The Tornado. What was her name? She was the Mahunkle's granddaughter.
Yeah.
I forget her name, but she was in Johns' post Infinite Crisis Justice Society.
I actually think there is some stuff we could talk about with Infinite Crisis in this one, because we've been talking recently quite a bit about Infinite Crisis for one reason or another, and this is kind of in many ways a retelling of that bit with Superman.
It is. And because of what the vibrational frequencies are, right? Because of what the multiverse means, and that basically was the return of the multiverse, but not infinite, right? There's 52 worlds, and almost the metaverse refutes that now, and it puts it in line with the dark multiverse. And
I mean, it refutes it in a couple of different ways actually, which we'll get into. Hell, even both Wildcats are there. You know, the newer one from
both
Crisis.
Wildcats,
right?
And then you look at the Legion, and this is the Legion from. So good on them for getting that.
Yeah, you've got like the new Lightning Lad in there.
Yeah. So obviously, even though it's all these things coming back, it's kind of like this new reformed version that kind of mixes the old with a little bit of the new that's happened, right? And this is where the book gets really kind of weird and trippy, in the sense that it really kind of tries to make sense of that, and even the fact that we have these changes every so often, and we get into some serious stuff. So yeah,
this is the epitome of having your cake and eating it too, isn't it?
So we see them fighting Black Adam, and but John sort of stops paying attention to that, and I'm going to basically go through the panels of this next bit, because this next bit is so like mythology defining for DC Comics and the DC universe as a whole, that attention must be paid to this.
This is the point where we have to pray that DC takes this seriously and they use this. Don't just throw this out.
No, I don't think they will.
No, I feel like there's some murkiness because this took a long time to get done, and there's some murkiness because they had to go ahead with some other things. But I think especially since this clearly hints at 5G in a little bit, I think it's clearly that this is going to be incorporated in terms of the overall thinking.
But I also feel like, well, like Connor just said too, but it's also, let's say 5G isn't a smashing success, right? Now they can fall back on the metaverse to fixing things.
It already tells us in here they're going to do that 5 years later anyway.
I think, do you know what I know there's some people who are going to find that really cynical and be like, look, refresh every 5 years. But I think it's again, the last couple of months we're kind of looking forward to 5G. We want that, shot of blood in the arm.
Yeah, we want a shake up. Yeah. So I mean, first of all, you have Manhattan saying he's inspired, but so he says 1938, Superman lifts the car over his head. He talks about how it gets to the first crisis, Earth 2 is born, all this classic DC stuff. After the crisis, the Earth divides again. And this is where things start to get really interesting, is he says, Earth 1 becomes Earth 1985, a world unexplored even today. And basically what this is and what it looks like is that pre-crisis Earth continued on in its own universe. Right. There's a pre-crisis Earth where we have Supergirl with a headband, and we have those versions of those characters, those Bronze Age versions of the characters, essentially, continuing on. And this idea that the metaverse, or the multiverse even, actually keeps every version of the universes to preserve every era, as he puts it, of Superman. He kind of puts Superman, or as I say that when I say he, I mean John's in this case, puts Superman at the center that the Earth's kind of, and the universes kind of revolve around.
As it should be.
Although I almost feel like there's opportunity there for some point for if Clark ever finds this out and Lois says, "Hey Clark, the world doesn't revolve around you." Actually, Lois, I think you'll find.
And not just our world, all of them.
It's at this point that I just like to, if anyone hasn't read it, go and read Morrison's Super Gods, because it is this concept essentially of. It's the idea of American comics being the American mythology and Superman being the key to everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that makes sense with Johns and them working so close, on 52.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, I'm sure they've, This has Morrison's fingerprints all over it once you get to the multiverse stuff.
Joe's funny about this is that so much, like, not every single detail of the continuity that's established here is going to necessarily fit everyone's perfect version of DC or Superman's continuity. I know some people don't like the idea that there was superheroes before Superman, that he should be the first, and this clearly doesn't do that. It's the JSA first, which I'm okay with, for the record. I'm not complaining about that.
Me too.
But for me personally, I'm not a big fan of Superman being Superboy before he's Superman. I kind of like Superman being the.
I like him being Superboy in the 31st century, and that's where he has his adventures. And because
I like fair, nothing in this comic excludes Matt's version there.
Oh sure, right. But I just don't like him being Superboy at all. I like the idea that when he becomes Superman, that's really the choice and the journey to becoming that for the first time. But that's a personal preference. But it doesn't really matter that there's maybe some small details that don't quite line up with your perfect version.
I think what is key here though is it goes, there's an Earth out there that does.
Yeah, but it also makes it very clear that everything is important. It also feels like everything is about paying homage to the history of everything. So, and obviously DC's been on long enough, and there's all periods that we hate. I mean, hell, this page even establishes that there is a Flash, there's the New 52 Earth that still exists, from before Rebirth, called Earth 52, which I never want to go there again. Let's stay away from that place.
No,
but
Perpetua, call me up. I'll tell you where it's at.
But I like that it exists in this context.
Yeah, because Manhattan makes it very clear that when the Flashpoint happened, that basically meant that the new universe, because the new universe is created for each one at the end of their time. So Flashpoint created the universe that has the post-crisis world in it. Rebirth happened, and that created the universe of the New 52. It separated it out, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the point where it diverges because of that point. That's where it's bottled essentially and locked off and put on a different path and continues in its own way.
Yeah, which is really exciting because it means that theoretically we could have a whole series of Elseworlds if a writer wants to go to a specific, continuity. They can just do it.
It's actually funny. We got that Giff and Lemire book. What was that? What? Yeah, that's kind of that, right?
Post invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it kind of is.
So I just want to let you guys know that if they start releasing post Infinite Crisis era books, that's all I'm reading. That's my jam. Like that right before Infinite Crisis to after Infinite Crisis, those are my favorite books. So DC, you want to put those out? You got a person. Like
you may get one or two, Matt. You're not going to get enough to fill your whole comic reading needs.
DC, prove them wrong.
So there's a big almost full page spread of Superman with Batman and various teams. Notably we've got a classic Batgirl outfit and we've got Nightwing in his blue, proper outfit.
Got a guy
Donna Troy.
There's a guy gone
I don't see a Kyle Rayner there, do you, Connor?
No.
No, but I see a Jessica Cruz. So
we've got Alan Scott, we've got Hal, we've got John, we've got Jessica,
Stewart.
we've got Guy. It's just Simon and Kyle that aren't there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So okay, the book's not perfect. They could replace a guy with Kyle, and it would be perfect. Anyway, so this is where things get really interesting because John starts just dating things for the future, which is oddly ballsy in a comic book. So let's go through these, right? So in the year 2020, Superman's timeline is bombarded with the reckless energies of the old gods, once again warping the universe. So 2020 is next year, right?
Right.
And that'll start 5G. And that'll make sense in a second because remember the 5G world is created when it ends, right? Which is why this is the start of 5G. And it says it's July 2nd, 2025, a crisis unlike any the Multiverse has ever seen. They'll call the Time Masters will erupt.
It says it just says one they will call Time Masters erupts.
Okay,
as if that's the name of the crisis. But I think it's interesting given that Rip Hunter's in a different book this week.
Sure. But it says, but then in its wake, Superman is revitalized and his greatest allies return. So if the rumors of 5G replacing a lot of the characters with other versions of them is true, then it's telling us right now they're all back in 2025.
Yep.
At the latest.
Well,
yeah.
And I see Dick Grayson wearing the blue Nightwing suit, so all's good in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Superman's revitalized, Dick's running around. It's
Yeah.
great.
Is that Batwing at the top now in a new outfit?
It looks like
It looks like it.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, look over by the flashes, and you got someone dressed like a turtle.
I noticed that as well.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if is that the turtle baby that Garad's been palling
grown
around
up.
with?
It's an ally. It's all grown
Yeah,
up.
like
Maybe.
because time, because the Speed Force and time distillation and whatnot. So,
No, some
But yeah.
interesting stuff. And there it says January 2026, the timeline is restored. Earth 5G is born. So that's the end of 5G.
Right.
So the crisis that happens in 2025, leads to
the end of
2026,
5G.
and that's the end of 5G, presumably, right? Now, admittedly, not all this is locked in stone, but I'm sure that
give
this
or take, that's 6 months. That's a 6-issue event.
This part here, though, everything we've just talked about, this 2020, 2025, I believe this plan is roughly in place right now. It may change, but I think there's actually some truth behind what he's saying here of what the rough plan is for the
agree with
timeline,
that.
right? And then he throws in some other wacky things here. 2030, Secret Crisis, and that title's perfect when you actually realise what he's joking and teasing about here. Throwing Superman into a brawl across the universe with Thor himself. Now, Thor, of course, isn't just Marvel Thor. There's lots of Thor, because Thor's free to use.
So you kind of go. I mean, it's on your mind as soon as you hear Thor, but you go, okay, sure, whatever.
And a green behemoth, stronger than even Doomsday, who dies protecting Superman from these invaders. So he's straight up teasing, like, Marvel DC Crisis.
so who's the invaders, right?
Oh, who knows?
Like, man, I got to know who kills Hulk.
I mean, because if Hulk's protecting Superman, clearly they're fighting side by side against some other villainous entity.
Yeah, and you have two of my favorite Marvel characters with my favorite DC character. What is going on, Johns? Get out of my head.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think this is probably just a wink, wink. Let's have a joke at this point. Cause
I think everything from this point on.
Yeah.
Well,
The one that I was not sure. Yeah, I think Matt's just about to say is June 17th, 2026.
Yes, of course. Yes, it is. Superman goes on a quest to find Bruce Wayne's lost daughter so she can save Bruce's son. So Damien's in a rough place, so the long lost sister of Damien needs to help him.
So is that Helena Wayne, right? Is this that version of Huntress going forward?
I mean, it's a solid idea.
Dark Damien.
I mean, given where Batman and Catwoman are, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for them to have a kid. Like,
right?
I mean, mentally, some timey-wimey nonsense to make it work.
I mean,
age-wise,
Damien
but
was timey-wimey nonsense in his own way.
That's true.
He is.
Well, it wasn't until we had Flashpoint.
Right.
Well, sure. But
no, I always love, though, that idea of Morrison going back again. Morrison went and found this moment where Talia and Bruce did the deed in the desert, and then it was out of continuity, but then he put it in a continuity, right? Like,
sure. So you're saying that we could just say, okay, Batman and Catwoman had one random encounter, X number of years ago, and here we are.
Right.
That's possible.
But also, it's each of these going forward, though, is because it says no matter how many times Superman's existence is attacked, he will survive.
Yeah, we go through a number of
change is constant.
Yeah, we go through a number of different. We see 2038, we see 2045, and there's versions where the Kents already have a baby. There's versions where they don't. And it just keeps happening and happening. No matter what, Superman always happens, and he's always there to kind of anchor everything, and eventually get things back on track. And this kind of inspires him, and it's basically this. And this is kind of where it gets to the point where it reveals what Ozymandias' plan the whole time has been: is he wanted Superman to inspire Manhattan, so that Manhattan would be inspired to save their world. Essentially, Manhattan is inspired to make sure his world has a Superman, and obviously we'll get to that properly at the very end.
It's kind of a great plan,
because that is why that Earth goes so off the rails. Is because there's no Superman.
Yeah.
Right. That's the subtext there, and so to answer the question of how is Superman relevant in 2019, 2020, Geoff Johns just gave it to you, right?
Again,
Hope's the North Star in the metaverse, right? All of these things work out because we want good in the world, right? Like, yes, the world can be a real shit place sometimes, but in a place where we can go to get lost, and at least that's how I read it, to get lost in them, it's always good when Superman's around to be the good that we all want to see in the world. And he does change worlds just with his presence there. And Alan Moore, that was kind of his point, right? Where what if superheroes existed in the real world of the 1980s?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So Manhattan rounds up the various Watchmen characters. Comedian actually gets blasted back to his world from Lex, although notably he goes back to the time he left, which was when he was falling out the window. So he just goes back to his death.
Well, and that's after he shoots Ozzy.
Yeah. Well, it's just Ozzy first, but yeah, Ozzy survives anyway. So, what's interesting though, so Manhattan sends the others back. He's sending the other characters back, but notably not Mime and Marionette, which is where things get interesting. And Reggie makes sure that Ozymandias is not going to die. He's stopping the bleeding because no, you're going to pay for your crimes. You're going to go to prison, despite the fact that you might have saved our world. It doesn't change what you did, which it is interesting.
I think it's interesting that it kind of parallels with Manhattan earlier in the issue, making that choice to. He's aware he did terrible things, so maybe he accepts his fate, and it's kind of the same sort of thing here.
I'm just. Again, parallels with a TV show, so I'm going to say anything for spoiler's sake.
Okay.
But,
please don't. I've not started it yet.
So that's interesting. But Manhattan says, "I'm not taking you two with me," and that is Mime. So Mime and Marionette are staying in the DC universe, which is very interesting. And he says that you're going to have a daughter, and you will see your son once again, but your son's going to need an anchor in this world like I did. And we get kind of into that, and this is where it goes back to Carver Coleman, and Manhattan goes back and sort of this he was his anchor and says, I've not been a good friend. And we find out that Carver Coleman actually has now went on to have a fairly, I mean, he did sort of like have a rough patch, but he he came back. He was an actor again. He won Oscars. He became an advocate for gay actors and like all these things. It gives this kind of almost feel good sort of element to his story.
I like the way that it twists it as well, because Manhattan, he just says, it's the point where he's like, the reason that you're not going to be here a year from now is because I won't be here, so you won't need to be here, essentially.
Right.
So he kind of does
not
it in a way
that diner for their annual meeting, because but I do like that because it keeps going within Nathaniel Dusk, where it says the marathon for the late star. And then, like what Pete was saying, it goes on to what he had did with his life and how much good it has done,
and
for others.
And it shows that knock-on effect of Superman inspiring Manhattan, and then Manhattan inspiring Carver Coleman to sort of lead this life and accomplish what he accomplished.
And that transitions into other stuff like the JSA coming back out, into the public light, is the generational team that we know. Yeah,
Justice League are obviously back from Mars as well. It mentions that here.
It talks of impeaching the president in a very, very timely week.
We have Superman and Lois actually going to see the Kents. The Kents are visiting Metropolis. So not only are they back in terms of not dying in his youth, they're both still alive now. We see them there in present day. They're back.
Also, Wonder Woman wants a new version of the Global Guardians.
Right, which that's cool. I like that. Yeah. And because they've, and each country is designating a person, and so it lists all of those, which is super cool. But when we get to the Kents, I'm not gonna lie, I shed a tear. I'm sitting reading this at work because I started it at home, but then had to leave, and then I get to work, and I'm in my office, single tear rolling down my cheek, because that scene of them hugging, it means the world to me that they're back.
I think I turned up a little bit. It wasn't that point. No, it was before that, when it was all just how important Superman is to everything and all that stuff.
So but Pete, I'd known that.
So Manhattan
that wasn't new to me.
Well, no, it wasn't new to me either, you tit. But where's my control? My TV's going to turn off.
Okay.
My situation reading this was surreal, because I went out to get my comics on Wednesday, and then I was going to see Star Wars, and I was going to a triple bill. Some showing started early evening, and I was like, I kind of want to read Doomsday Clock, because I just want to read it. And so I went to get some food before I went in. So I'm sat in KFC, and I'm like, I got time, so I'm just there sat in KFC reading Doomsday Clock, and I'm like, again, getting very affected by these things. And I'm sure it looked pretty weird.
So Manhattan goes back to his Earth, all the chaos and destruction from what we saw in the end of the first issue, and we see him start to grow, basically life. He starts growing stuff out the ground, and Chloe starts to fix things. We find that Ozymandias does go to prison on that Earth. Reggie kind of thanks his father at his grave for kind of inspiring him, and all these other little things we see. Marionette.
Well, wasn't Byron Lewis the Mothman?
Oh, Matt, you're Mike.
I don't know what he said there either.
Wasn't Byron Lewis the Mothman guy?
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So he thanks because there's a moth in that panel where he says thank you.
Yeah, I misspoke.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but he talks about maybe Marinette, at the bank and why he didn't kill the kid, and he's kind of foggy as to the exact details of how this happened. But basically, Manhattan's the one who took the kid, and we already kind of had the hint from before that he gave the kid to Laurie and Dan, right?
Right.
But this kind of goes further with it and explains that he essentially put his essence and his powers into this kid. Yep. And we see him fade away from existence as he's doing this. And the book ends with this kid showing up at the doorstep of Laurie and Dan, who've got their daughter already. The daughter opens the door, and we have little boy. Well, in my head, I'm thinking little boy John, and the final page is him saying, "John calls me Clark," and that's the end of the book. He's basically made this kid with his own powers, this Earth Superman, and given him to a couple that he knows can raise them in the same way that Martha and Jonathan Kent raised Clark. Yeah. So that is the ultimate ending to Doomsday Clock.
I kind of love how they had an owl clock.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I love, and that the time is past 12, right? It's like 2 past. Like we've made it through the Doomsday Clock resets. Yeah. But yeah, no, I love that page too, because it also with him, his mind wanders back to what could have been, and you see him just be like, yeah, I'll leave the watch in there. It's fine, and then so he somewhat gets a happy ending, right? Like the man that caused all of this, gets to fade off.
He has a quick daydream about what if he'd got married and had kids and that life had played out. But yeah, we always kind of assumed this was going to end with Superman, making Manhattan hope again,
talking his way out of it.
Yeah. And so it's not necessarily surprising. Obviously, the big story here is really all this stuff about how things will always find a way to sort of come back to what they should be, and Superman being the center of that. And then obviously the actual tease for, hey, we're actually going to do 5G. That is that. Obviously, we've heard rumors for a while. This is the first time, officially it's happening, because it's just got mentioned in a book.
Yeah. And there was you brushed over just the other character, Nostalgia.
Yes.
That was introduced here.
Which is again, it's the cycle, right?
Yeah.
Of she gets obsessed with Ozymandias, so because she goes and visits him, Bobatus finds her standing out of his prison, and then she becomes Nostalgia, and whatever that means. And having seen the show, that has a completely different meaning from the show.
Yeah, that moment felt really weird to me, having watched the show, because I was like, oh, okay.
But also, I know from the original Watchmen, Nostalgia was a scent put out by Veit's company too, so and it smelled like whatever you wanted it to smell like. That's why it was so popular. Like it was this weird chemical, and that's why it was called that. So she becomes Nostalgia.
And, obviously I can't talk about it, but there's actually some shocking parallels between how this ends and how the show ends.
Joe, annoyingly, I've seen some spoilers. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Very fascinating, but
I'm just guessing, Pete, just yes or no, it involves the egg thing, right? Like, is that what you're talking about?
Kind of. Yeah.
Well, if you're watching, I'm up to the 8th episode, you can kind of guess where it's going a little bit. Like, I'm sure they'll still surprise me, because it has, no matter what. Just where I thought where it was going, but still. No, that's a super solid show. Like, it's stupidly solid. But yeah, no, I got Doomsday clocked in, and then I got to go see Star Wars end.
I did them within hours of each other, and it was like, oh.
Well, one ended much stronger than the other.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
That's fine. I still enjoyed them both for different reasons. It's but the amount of Superman, I've heard complaints about this book where people being like, oh, I wanted it into the Doomsday Clock story. I didn't need an essay on why Superman's great. And I was like, that was the start of the book. Like, it's been
also,
there.
You always need an essay why Superman's great, no matter what.
I mean,
you can always have another one of
But
those.
like, I saw that complaint on Twitter. I'm just like, I think you're missing the point of this, dude. Like, it's been there. As soon as the metaverse concept was introduced, and you can kind of once you see it all fall into place, that was Ozymandias' thing, was like, we need a Superman to inspire this world, so it's not a complete shit show.
Yeah,
like,
I put a tweet on the DC Comics Twitter, so at DC Comics Podcast is our Twitter, and just asking what people thought of it. Yeah. And there was obviously people were generally quite positive, but there was a couple of questions, and one of them was like, okay, how exactly does this fit into continuity? And I think the weird thing here is the way this ends and talks about how things have kind of reset. It does almost, like, in a weird way, like, I'm not sure exactly when the other books are officially in the post-Doomsday Clock continuity, but the way it happens, and it's like, okay, you could technically just say it happens before Alfred dies, and that's why Alfred's here.
I think this is why I want to just talk about. I'm touching on another book here, but the Earth 3 stuff that we're going to get to later, and we see the crime syndicate, and we address. Oh, didn't they die in Forever Evil? And the explanation is the multiverse needs to fix itself. There are things that just need to be the way they are, and maybe Alfred is one of those things.
And then also in that you have Rip Hunter talking about how hypertime's broken, and that, usually time is fixed, right? Like the past and the future, and he says in that one, there's something going on. So was that a reference to stuff that has happened in this book, right? Was it?
I wonder if there will be like a definitive moment in the rest of the books where maybe it'll be the end of Year of the Villain, maybe it'll be whatever the next event is that kind of clearly defines that, okay, we're definitely in the post-Doomsday Clock. Or is it more kind of fluid right now because of the way some of this stuff's already started happening?
I suspect it'll be Snyder's Crisis.
But I feel like it does ultimately mostly work. There's just a couple of weird things, and Alfred being one of the main ones, obviously. But
we can just undo that later.
That's the beauty of this book. It's like, all the shit's gonna get undone. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
And that's comics. That's the cycle. Like I made that joke about only wanting to read that era of comics because I go back and read it, and there is a nostalgia factor, right? And that it doesn't hurt that some of the best comics, I feel, you have Rucka and Wade and John's all at DC at the same time. You know what I mean? And they're all working on a lot of good stuff. But as a comic fan, I know this era is only going to last so long, and then it's going to go to a new one, and hopefully it's a little bit closer to Rebirth than it is to New 52, but it's just something that you have to go with, and maybe you don't always read books, right?
Hopefully it's closer to any era and not New 52.
Because those are the next two. Yeah. But I stopped reading Superman at a certain point, and it sucks, but it just goes to, you can become this jaded fan that, they don't make comics like they used to. Or you're just like, they don't make comics like they used to because they make comics like they do now. And
what's funny is that none of us are reading Wonder Woman right now, but none of us would say that we're not reading Wonder Woman because it's in a dire place like Superman was in New 52. It's not like that. No. We just don't like the writer. It is just like, but some people do, and it's not completely ruining the character. It's just,
And that's also why I try to get away from saying stuff about books that I don't read, right? Like, even like it's fun to poke, at Red Hood and whatnot.
Yeah, but at least that has representation on the show.
Right.
So you are, not that you listen, but you are theoretically up to date.
Right, but I'm saying,
what's going on.
Or at other companies, like the fact that there's still a rivalry between Marvel fans and DC fans, where it's like, well, just read what you want to read, guys. Like, yes, I prefer my DC characters. Like, I was talking to my wife about Connor. No, he's not really big on the Marvel movies. Like, he's, and that's just, he'll read Marvel comics, but like the movies, they're just at a point where.
But in kind of the spirit of what Matt's saying, I've kind of stopped talking about them. Like, hey, you want to enjoy them? Go enjoy them. I'm just not going to watch them.
Right. And so, but I would say you're a DC fan first, so that takes priority. Yeah. like, and whatnot. So, man, I guess that's all just the whole thing. Is like, read what you want to read, right? Comics are going to keep going. CM Punk had that thing when he left the WWE, where he's like, I'm just a spoke on the wheel, right? The wheel's going to keep on turning, whether I'm there or not. And that's how I feel with a lot of comics. Comics are going to keep going until, they get to, too expensive under their own weight, and they'll have an implosion like they did in the early 90s.
Yeah, but even then, they didn't go away completely. No, they changed.
Exactly.
But...
Right.
Yeah, when that happens, that's when we switch to the complete Netflix model. That's
right.
that's my prediction. When they come too expensive for people to buy single issues of, that's when the primary way people read them will be through a service where you just get them all.
Well, and it's also why I like when I go to a con, and I don't go to too many, but if I can buy from the person right there, like I've only bought Letter 44 from Charles Soule, right? Like, because there's a thing to it. That's his book. That's an independent thing, and it just feels cool to do that. I like that interpersonal than going to the shop and whatnot, because at the price comics are getting to, like we were talking earlier, like I'm not going to be able to read as much as I would like to, just because of other hobbies and interests. So
it's true. A lot of creators have their own websites if you want to give them a higher cut, essentially.
Well, I just mean is I like that I'm getting it directly from his hands. There's a story attached to it. There's a reason I own it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Versus just like, well, I wanted to read it, so I bought it, which is 95% of what I get now,
Yeah.
So, but again, they start going up to $5 a piece. I'm not going to be able to read everything. Like, it's going to be more of these Wonder Woman scenarios where it's like, oh, who's the writer on that? All right, maybe I'll catch up on trade. It'll show up on digital later.
I mean, one of the things about comics is that obviously you always have to start off with just like some characters you're interested in, but eventually it becomes more about what creators you like more than what characters you like, because ultimately that's what makes the books good or not. And sure, there's some characters you will stick with below a certain lane of quality, but
Flash.
But like ultimately, every character has a bottom though. Every character has a line where I'm not going to read this anymore. I love Dick Grayson, but we crossed that line, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
I mean, and it's not even necessarily just quality that is the defining factor in this case, because like Superman, like with me, like obviously I love Superman, love this issue, and it's all about Superman. Right. I'm not reading it right now because I don't enjoy Bendis's writing. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that this is badly written or anything. I'm saying I don't enjoy it.
Right.
Anyway, how did we get on to any of this? This feels.
I don't know. I blame Matt.
Yeah, it is Matt's fault.
No, I'm just talking about it's part of that cycle of comics that is part of the cycle of the metaverse. That's how we got talking about it, because they're going to change, right? Like, they're
going to change, but they're also always going to come back to familiar things.
Right, exactly, and that's the cycle, and it's even happening at Marvel, right? Like, how often do they change? Seems to be faster. Like the Marvel universe seems to have a quicker turnover cycle at this point.
If DC's is like 5-ish years, which feels like the system we're kind of getting into now between New 52, Rebirth, and going into 5G.
Yeah, although Marvel for the most part doesn't actually change continuity when it does it. It keeps getting more convoluted because things are changing so often. There's so much
history.
I
mean,
like,
the metaverse is what we're saying.
Right, they do. And like Jason Aaron's done on Thor, and what's his name from Venom's
Donny
going
Cates.
over there, right? And it's still the same character. It's still the Thor that Aaron was writing, but
it'll
maybe
probably feel very different.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's a cycle of comics. So, and that's why I love Geoff Johns, and I understand when people have issues with him. Our friend Alan used to say that it's just position, right? Where he overwrites certain things, but I didn't feel that happened here. Like, I can see that.
It's worth mentioning when I asked people for opinions on Twitter, it wasn't a ton of responses, but every single person who did respond did it in at least 2 or 3 tweets. There was no one who was able to do it in a single tweet. Everyone had to do blocks of text and several tweets because that was the only way they could do it. So everyone essentially has an opinion on this if you care enough about the DC universe that you're interested in what it's doing to it. And I think we're all excited about certain things. I mean, And the state of DC Universe right now is not too bad. Like, there's definitely things I'm not enjoying, but there's a lot of things I am enjoying. We have, obviously, the Black Label stuff is really spacing things up. Well, of course, they're all like continuity, but they're really good. Certainly, I am definitely ready for Scott Snyder to not be the one driving the flagship. I really am at this point.
Me too. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
I think what's interesting is, barring Dick Grayson, nothing's in a terrible position. Nothing's irredeemable.
No. But even then, Jurgens is trying to redeem that Dick Grayson stuff right now.
Okay, he's trying, and I like Jurgens, but it's still, I'm not interested. Whereas, everyone else is in a situation where if you just put a writer on I'm interested in, then I'm willing to go with it.
I could. So what you were saying about Bendis and Superman, I could say the same about Morrison and Green Lantern, right? Like, it's the same thing, and that's why I like Black Label. Is I have Far Sector if I want to read Green Lantern right now, right? Like, that's why I'm glad. Well, that's not Black Label.
It's why it annoys me that Bendis is on both Superman and Action, because it takes up both of my options, and I want one option.
So I think DC's got it figured out pretty well with the different lines with. Young Animal. Is that its own imprint?
It is. It's off and on. Okay. I think it's gone again.
Gotcha.
I think Far Sector is still technically Young Animal.
No, it is. That's why I was saying. Yeah. But then you have Black Label, which is some of my favorites. Like, I love the Murphy White Knight stuff right now. Like, it's some of my favorite.
But this is the thing. There are a lot of things that we're all enjoying, and a lot of these are out of continuity books. And the mainline continuity, I think we're not hating it. There's nothing like, this is all terrible, but it's not. A lot of it's not massively exciting right now, which is what we're looking forward to. Okay, 5G. Let's give this a shot of adrenaline and get going again.
We're less enthused as we were at the beginning, because when you have a new start, it's exciting, right? Yeah. Like, I remember doing that first show after that WonderCon, right? About all these, Josh Williamson's coming to Flash. He was handpicked by Johns and whatnot. And what's this? There's going to be a big event that it's building up to, and they were kind of hinting at metal even as far back then. So, but yeah, and now we have that with 5G for whatever this means going forward. John's put it to paper here, so we know it's coming 100%.
I mean, there's a really good chance we might even get another WonderCon style like batch of announcements.
Yeah, I think we will.
Come March, because that would be.
I don't think it'll be in WonderCon. I think that's too early.
So you think they'll fully go Comic-Con?
Maybe, because I think we're having this crisis event after Hell Arisen, and I think whatever happens with 5G is coming out of that. And all the leaks and rumors were saying early 2021 for 5G. So I think it'll be somewhere toward, maybe late summer, maybe around San Diego is when we hear that, and we get those announcements.
Well, yeah, and then maybe they learned their lesson from the Black Label. Because remember when they first announced that, and then they had to retract a lot of stuff and then restructure it. So maybe they learned their lesson that we're not going to announce it too early. And
not too early, sure. But I do definitely see if they're going to do a whole line-wide thing again, we're going to have a lot of new books. I can see because Rebirth had that. Rebirth had that event where they went through like almost all the books that were going to come out in the first several months and announced all the teams, and it was and they all came to be. There was I think Super Sons was the one that took the longest, but other than that, everything was there in the first few months.
I suspect we will get that. I just think WonderCon's too early.
I was forgetting there's probably going to be an event before then. But this book did say 2020.
It did. So that's true.
So at the very least, I think the event, which might be this crisis that leads to it, is definitely in 2020.
I want to know what these old god energies are. Like, what does that mean? Is this like the Fourth World style stuff? Is this
I was wondering,
Wonder Woman? What is this?
I was wondering, are they going to try and tie that into like the Perpetua sort of stuff and go down that angle and go there, the oldest gods, so to speak?
So whatever it is, I'm excited. I love DC events, for better or worse. I can't help myself.
Yeah. Although the quicker we get away from this Perpetua shite, the better.
I mean, well, the end's close, so. But yeah, I'm there. Justice Doom War was way too long.
I'll say that the cover of Hell Arisen, or I don't know if it was the cover, but what part of it said, the stunning conclusion to Year of the Villain. I'm like, finally, yes.
Yeah,
kill it.
I think it's funny that you say that Justice Doom War's been too long, because it has, but it's It's the exact same thing with the with John's Justice League. What was that fight? Dark Side War.
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
Darkseid War did go too long, although I think ultimately I prefer Darkseid War to Justice Doom more, but I mean, that's...
So do I. But I
And
also got
they have similar problems though.
But I also got one of my favorite Green Lantern stories out of Darkseid War, so I'm not gonna.
That was a
Yeah.
hell of a one shot. I will give you
That
that.
that was the Tom King Doc Shaner, which if Strange Adventures is anything like that, and then you're gonna add Garrett's, come on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's read Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, we're basically at that point. I just looking ahead, like I do think they're more or less going to adhere to this. It's just a case of like how much of a sort of soft inclusion or defining point is going to be used for it. But reality does warp at the end. Technically, you know, we don't see Alfred after, you know, Manhattan resets reality again. So there's an argument to be made that Alfred's technically dead at the end of this book as well.
And it's Dr. Manhattan's fault. Get him.
I could live with that. As much as, you know, we don't want Alfred to be gone. He'll be back at some point. And you know, we know we're having, you know, Lucius for a while. That's okay.
I mean, hell, if there's a disappointment here, it's that it doesn't outright fix the Wally shite from Heroes in Crisis. that's the
but he's still running with the Flash family in that image.
in the future image,
Which-
yeah.
And
is
Jay's
that?
there.
But is that just John's? Because we know he loves Wally.
Well, I
right?
mean,
Wally.
that image where that's all happening, the implication from the text I got was that this was 2026 when all the allies came back. That was the feeling I got from just because of the panels that were, or the text boxes that were on that panel.
Well, if it takes 6 years to fix Wally, then I mean that's the price.
No, I'm with Pete on this one. I think that's the end of the 2025 crisis because,
Right.
like I say, you know, the new Batwing outfit. I would not be surprised if that's what we see in the if in 5G, you know, we get Luke as Batman. If that's his Batman outfit.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So now looking forward to things. If anything, I'm just annoyed we have to go through possibly a Snyder crisis to get to
Of
5G.
course,
Yeah, but, like,
that was basically a Snyder crisis, and that was great.
Yeah, but we did it
Yeah, and,
already.
Yeah, but this is gonna be different because this is an actual crisis. That was a pre-crisis,
We'll see.
and I hate that that's become a thing because pre-crisis means something different than what I just meant.
Yeah.
That's part of the build up to crisis.
I'm
Lead
so
The countdown.
Yes, Road 2.
I'm so mixed on Snyder the best of times these days that it's hard to get excited
Me
for a
too,
Snyder
but
event.
then you get to read Good Snyder with American Vampire for Patreon.
I do.
So I feel lucky because I missed that. Although sometimes I get shades of it, and we'll get to that. There's shades of stuff that I love, but I'm tired of him being so damn wordy. So like John's, sure can be wordy, but I never not felt the flow in Doomsday Clock, and I feel with Snyder, and this is why they're such different writers. Sometimes I'm like, all right, we get it. This is a textbook, man.
I'm not gonna lie. I think part of this is Frank.
That's too.
just having that perfect pacing, and
Yeah.
I think in the sense that, you know, him and Johns have done this together. They know exactly what it is. You know, they've been involved at every step. Whereas with Justice League, how many artists have been on that book? And don't get me wrong, there's been some very good art, but none of them have been the storytellers in the way that Frank has been. They've been facilitating the story. They've not been the collaborator in the same way.
Yeah. Oh well, okay. I guess we're at the point of rating Doomsday Clock.
Just 310s. So just get out of the way.
I'm fairly certain it's 310s. I mean,
Mine's not.
He's going to give it an 11 or 12.
oh yeah, it was something
16.
stupid.
It's about 10.5. How dare you? Where's 10.5?
310s then, right? 310s for
310s
Doomsday
it
Clock
is.
12. What a shock! I'm so surprised. All right, I think we can move on to the second book of the week. Out of like 18 total books, somewhere between the two shows. So the second book is Suicide Squad, issue 1, Tom Taylor writing with Bruno Redondo on the art. So we have an in continuity Tom Taylor book in DC, which is a cause for celebration. And
It's finally happening.
here's what I'm going to say, right? So I have never been a big Suicide Squad guy. I tried the New 52 issue 1, I tried the Rebirth issue 1, and I've never felt compelled to stick around past a first issue. And to me, this issue is just proof. It's the proof that it doesn't matter what the character or property or team is. That if you give it to Tom Taylor, he will write an issue that makes me want to keep reading.
That's fair. I will say, I think none of us have really read the classic Suicide Squad stuff, right? Unless
No.
Matt has. So, and I get that's probably more well regarded than the other stuff. In terms of Suicide Squad, I've read that I have enjoyed. There was like 4 issues by Alice Cott in the middle of the New 52 stuff. That was great, and then editorial happened, and he had to leave. So it is possible from other writers as well. Is what I'm saying. Even though Tom Taylor is clearly
I never said
a king amongst writers.
I never really meant to imply that no other writers can't
Tom
do it.
Taylor, King Tom of writers. Is that what Connor was saying? Was that a dig?
It wasn't intended to be, but I realize how it can be interpreted as such.
So, and I think this is the key here. Is I feel like a lot of the Suicide Squad from the past has been these, Island of Misfit Toys type characters where, no one's doing anything with them, so you hand them over to the Suicide Squad writer and they become completely expendable. Here, though, I think that Taylor took time to introduce these new characters, and when he merges them with the Suicide Squad, it gives the team a different vibe. Because these are characters that we kind of know that from their interpersonal stuff early on, mixing with like Deadshot and Harley Quinn characters we're pretty familiar with. So when something does happen to one of the new characters, it does feel like, oh, this is legit. They don't, because they're all expendable, but you're not sure which one, right?
Yeah, because clearly some of these characters are going to survive and be main characters in the book for a long time, presumably. But you don't know which ones because they're all new. They're either all completely dead very quickly, or some of them are going to survive.
And I know he said when this was announced that no one's safe, but I can kind of guess Harley's the one that I don't think he can actually kill.
I suspect he would not be allowed to kill Harley.
Yeah,
maybe Deadshot as well.
I'd say, but I could see Deadshot going. I could see that being
I think
end of this.
Could be a big surprise that they'd allow him to do. None of the, I think, any of the others are fair game. Really.
Right. Yeah. And Zebra Man. I don't think he's, I think Tom Taylor likes writing Zebra Man just because it's a hero called Zebra Man. I'm gonna think they're relatively safe for now.
I'm so into Cavalier.
yeah, Cavalier.
Well, Cavalier does not last all this issue, so good luck with that. I'm really into these. The what are they? Not the Renegades. This rebellious group of younger, superpowered people who are.
But also, when you have a large muscled woman named Osita, which is a Spanish word for a bear.
Of course it is.
I'm not gonna not like her.
So basically there's this general or whoever, he's at I don't know.
It's a submarine launch in Australia.
Is it launching?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was a launch or decommission, but
of course it's Australia.
Right. And basically, this superpowered person, Wink, shows up and sort of teleports him out of the sky with her, and then this flying guy. We get obviously there's a page here where it sort of explains most of these main team members. I love
Airy.
Now it doesn't last very long. He's dead by the end of the issue. But TN I think is a great name for an exploding person.
on the Airy, I think is interesting in something in this setup here. Every other character that's introduced from this team, we learn their power and where they're born. The Airy is the only one that doesn't say where they're born, and I think that might become relevant at some point.
I think it will too. But yeah, I like Jog because he's a speedster, but only in limited bursts. I think that's a fun twist on that type of stuff. And then you have Chaos Kitten, which from Hong Kong and is a fighter, and it shades a Wildcat to me.
Yeah,
right. I like that.
Yeah, well, it just establishes that there are going to be occasionally some of these members that don't have powers. Just like any other superhero team in the DC universe, there's usually one or two that don't have powers. So it sets up these characters, and we spend the first half of the issue getting to know them, and they're kind of these activists who are taking. So they're not super villainous in the same way that a lot of the other Suicide Squad characters are. This isn't like Deadshot who's like a hitman or whatever. These are characters who are get out there and they're taking over vessels and whatever. Now, admittedly, maybe they have some nefarious plans with the vessel, but it never really felt necessarily quite like that to me so far.
They are called the Revolutionaries. Like they have a point of
It was all
they're
like
doing this for a cause.
nuclear weapons was on one of these
Right.
submarines. It was a nuclear launch, and they were like, "No, we don't want any more of these in the world.
Nope.
We're taking this off your hands."
Yeah, so TNT blows up the others, like the partnership, and we meet the two fishy ones, Scale and Finn, who are both Atlantean and telepathic.
Right, they're definitely from the Sixth Stride, right?
Yeah, they have that look to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to give this a fair bit of credit for making me kind of into some of these characters in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the thing that Tom Taylor's the best at more than anything else is just writing characters that you enjoy reading and are kind of into their story, even when you don't get a whole lot with them. And I felt that with multiple things. I felt that with his X-Men Red. It wasn't very long in All New Wolverine where I was caring so much about Laura and Gabby. Like, he does this time and time again. And of course, we cut then to the Suicide Squad, and we're introduced to Locke, who is the new leader of the Suicide Squad. He's taken over from Amanda Waller, who we later find out is
That's
quitting.
what he thinks. Yeah. But
Well, sure, yes. I mean, we could speculate.
Waller never does anything she doesn't want to do.
That said,
You know what I
she
mean?
does seem very, like, I don't know. Like, maybe this again is just her playing it up, but she does seem very upset about the whole thing the whole time. She's very quiet and like somber, and like it's like a forced, it's like she's resigning, but she's been forced to resign. It kind of has that feeling to it. But we have Magpie, the Shark, Zebra Man, Cavalier, obviously Deadshot and Harley, and they've been sent in. None of the Justice League teams can go in to deal with this. None of the armies can go in to deal with this, so they're sending in this team. I like them making fun of Cavalier, Deadshot and Harley telling me shut up.
This is why I was like, "Oh, I'm into Cavalier. He's trying so hard, bless him."
I actually also really like when Harley's talking to Zebra Man. Like, why are you Zebra Man? The theme, like, were you bitten by a radioactive zebra? No. Are your powers zebra based? No. Do you just really like zebras? Never really thought about it.
You've never what?
Yeah, so I'm looking up his origin, and it's such silver-aged silliness. His I guess his official powers is he has magnetic powers, which here it's more of a telekinesis because that's what
It does say controls
It's-
magnetism though.
Oh, that is right there, isn't it? Telekinesis, force field, controls magnetism, stripey.
Yeah, all of these things sound very zebra-like, don't they?
Yeah. So
I mean, hey, to be fair, Stripey is.
yeah.
Credit where it's due.
Yeah.
He's got the.
But I like it. I like that Magpie. She's just like, I just steal things. This is way out of my league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I actually really like Magpie as a villain. Whenever she pops up, I think she's always pretty enjoyable.
Well, don't get too attached.
Yeah, you did.
No,
You liked her.
Yeah.
I did.
So we cut back to the young revolutionaries. They're chatting and whatever. And there's the couple that are flying up in the sky, and the winged one gets shot in the wing, and it's okay. Deadshot's around, and then the shark, grabs one of the Atlanteans, and that's a great. Like, the art's really good in this. I thought the art was really solid.
This is the team that did Injustice, which goes to some really messed up places, and just the 4 issues of it that I've had the time to read. This wastes no time.
Oh, absolutely. There's some great violence here. The shark rips him in half, biting him. That's not my favorite panel in the book, though. My favorite. So Magpie gets killed by one of the other characters in the ship.
Thylacine.
Yeah. But the best part of this, absolutely, is Cavalier shows up. He thinks he's all going to. He's on guard. He's like here to do this, and I like the cat girls like. You want me to be on my guard? Why? Like, we're fighting.
Right.
But basically, the big woman sneaks up behind him. She's got the bionic arm, the Terminator arm.
Yeah, buddy.
And now, admittedly, we're not doing our favourites of the week at the end of this episode because we're going to have to wait until we do all the books, and we'll do them at the end of the next episode. But if it wasn't for Doomsday Clock Week, this metal fist going through the face with the eyeballs flying away from it might be my panel of the week.
It's a strong contender in any other week.
Yeah, this is freaking beautiful. Locke makes Deadshot shoot everyone with these not like lethal bullets, and we find out right after that this is basically the neck implants, but just delivered by bullet. So Locke comes down, and the whole ruse here was that he wants to recruit the rest of all these people into his own Suicide Squad, and that he's going to reshape the Suicide Squad so he can reshape the world, and this team will be the most badass thing ever. And he blows up TNT to prove his point.
Yeah.
Because there's always one, right? There's always one. I need to prove that this can happen. So
yeah, and he's been studying. So TNT's a lot like a human bomb from Freedom Fighters, where he has to charge it up, and because he had already, the last 2 days he hadn't been charged. They make safe. But he wasn't, because you can't blow up a guy that his powers to blow up if he's not charged for it.
I think it was also as well the idea of, okay, he is uncontrollable, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to all the others, bombing them will do the trick. Not this guy.
Yep.
Yeah, he can clearly survive an explosion.
Right. Yeah. So, boom. Make an example of him.
He has the explosion. Maybe he can't survive the explosion because he just killed him with the explosion.
He can't survive the explosion when he's not ready for it. It's not his explosion. But the idea of if he just let this guy wait until he was charged up, and then he could just blow him up, and
they would take him out.
Yeah.
It would take Locke out of the equation.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it was self-preservation. So
that's kind of where we end the book. It's like, you all work for me now, and that's it. So I thought this was an excellent first issue. I think this did so many characters, made me kind of. I mean, I don't necessarily remember all the names yet or anything like that, but it made me like them all well enough in terms of ensemble. It gave me some fun stuff with Harley and Deadshot. It set up this new dynamic. We've got this new status quo with this new guy taking over the team. No one's happy about it, including because even the original Suicide Squad was like, you know what, Amanda Waller, we hate your guts, but I at least know who you are, and I feel like I know how to play the game with you.
Right. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah. So I really like that aspect of it. I thought the art was extremely solid throughout. I think it's very clean. It feels.
I shout out to the colorist as well. Whoever that is, Adriana Lucas. Some great clean colors. I love the way the waves on the sea are done. When we get onto the inside stuff with Magpie and the red and all the silhouette, it's great.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Taylor's never afraid to show someone dying. We didn't actually see Magpie die. We just see that she goes off the monitor.
Yeah, well, I just read that more. It was less of a misdirect and more it was going for that classic horror thing where the person sneaks up behind her and it just cuts to the flat line, on the monitor. Yeah. Like, it was going for almost the spooky.
I agree. I think she is dead. I think it was that. But I mean, it's open if they want to bring her back.
Yeah. Right.
So I have never been this enthusiastic about a Suicide Squad book ever, and Taylor I trust.
Yeah.
So.
And so I'm hoping this is the kind of tone James Gunn brings to his movie.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because if this is the type of tone with what we've seen with like arm fall off boy and stuff, then this is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. We're just talking about how the big continuity stuff's maybe a little stale right now, and then we immediately start talking about the new Suicide Squad book, and I was like, this is great. Yeah. I love this.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing that we were getting at is, there are great books and great in-continuity books that are fresh like this. It's a new number one. It's just, because it's just one book, it doesn't feel like it affects the whole line, right? You don't have that renewed enthusiasm for everything at once.
But I definitely don't want this to just be canned when the reset happens. I mean, it's only 10 issues in just because there's a reset happening.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah. And like, they've done it before, like... John's just carried on doing Green Lantern into the New 52 like nothing happened.
Even though that completely reset everything else.
Yeah, right. It just carried on like nothing changed. Hell, Morrison, while he got shafted to a side book with his Batman Inc. Stuff.
Yep.
It
still just carried on Morrison's stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, there's precedent. But no, really solid. And his Spider-Man book just got cancelled at Marvel, so. Yeah. There's every possibility Taylor might be, and he's because he's doing Deceased 2 and he's doing Suicide Squad. Now that's two DC books, at least ongoing for a little bit. So hopefully this means that Taylor will be more in the DC camp.
I would say lock him in for an exclusive, but I want him to keep doing Star Wars books.
He can be exclusive. I'm okay with that. I'm A-okay with that. Give him.
Yeah, because all of those I do, as much as I like Pack and Hauser. I do think the Taylor ones in the Resistance were a little bit better. Yeah, he's very good at one shots. Like it takes a special kind of
writers at that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and that's not to say his issue to issue stuff. His arcs aren't good as well, but from the stuff that we've seen thus far. I mean, look at that Detective Comics we just read. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stand by it. Tom Taylor for Detective Comics when Tomasi's done, or hell, kick him off soon. Like, no need to wait.
No, let Tomasi ride out the rest of the year, do his and then start in 5G. Bring in Taylor.
Sure, yeah, but
I'm down for like a Taylor Tynion on Batman and Tech.
But we'll see. I mean, it depends. I mean, who's Batman at that point? Is it, like,
who cares? Taylor will make it shine no matter what.
Oh, sure, but I'm saying I also would quite like, Bruce Wayne Batman from Taylor, so we can start before
Dick
then.
Grayson Batman from Taylor.
I would take Dick Grayson Batman from Taylor too. That is true.
I will take any Batman from Taylor. I'm quite happily.
Oh yeah, Jason Todd, sure, really.
In Taylor we trust.
Oh, okay, all right.
Battle for the Cowl by Tom Taylor.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Hey, you can basically
that could
put
be
anything by Tom
Elseworlds.
Taylor, and I'm there.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, Matt, what are you rating Suicide Squad #1?
I'm gonna give this an 8. It's super solid. But yeah.
Connor?
I'm going to give it a 9, just because I didn't expect to be able to care about a lot of these characters. There's so many new characters in the first issue, and I care about...
Osita rules.
Exactly.
Yeah, very distinct cast of characters. I'm also giving it a 9. I thought it was a fantastic issue 1. This week's off to a great start. Now, admittedly, the deck was a bit stacked because Doomsday Clock was in a Tom Taylor book, but like we're off to a winning start. Now, admittedly, we are moving on to Batman 85 by Tom King with art by Mikel Janin. The end of at least the main part of Tom King's run, because obviously he's doing Batcat next year, but this is the end of the main book line for him.
It's his Rise of Skywalker. So the fact that I read this and then saw Rise of Skywalker, I was like, oh man. So we're gonna have some messes.
I'm so glad it's done.
Me too.
I don't like this. A lot of it just feels like we could have skipped huge chunks of this run.
I like parts of it. I don't like a lot of it though.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. The ending of How I Met Your Mother. In the sense that
you nailed it.
Sure, these beats are great, they're fine. But you kind of just ignored like the last 3 years of character development of other stuff that just because you had this ending in mind, especially like the stuff with Gotham Girl. Like you could basically go from the time we saw her back in like the 20s, whenever that was last time, and then to
Gotham
now.
Girl belongs with Duke because they both suck.
Yeah. Also, did we ever really get any kind of like concrete idea of like what she meant when she said I destroyed Bruce Wayne, or whatever she said back at the end of that? Like,
no,
it wasn't that she destroyed Bruce Wayne, because there was no hint that she was villainous at that point. It was Bruce Wayne would be dead within like a year or whatever it was.
And we never got there.
No.
But there are parts of this that I really enjoy. When we get to the end and he goes, "Yeah, but you're not my father." I really like that. That was a real good moment. But like,
do you know? Here's the thing. So during this issue, it's cutting between the actual fight with Thomas Wayne, which is mostly Catwoman actually, who surprises him and kind of jumps him. But like it's going through, it's flashing around. Bruce is in the bar, waiting for Selena, and it's got all the beats that it's going to. So he's with Gotham Girl. But one of the things that it keeps cutting to is various things with Catwoman where they're either being romantic, or the bat signal's up in the sky, so they're going out and being on the rooftops, as we've seen before. And multiple times they bring up, should we still just get married? And they talk about when they can get married. Can we just do it in the morning, kind of thing? And I thought, I've been thinking for years, since issue 50, that the run will probably end with them getting married, because it just makes narrative sense. And the end of this is basically her saying, look, we don't really need to be married, we're always going to be together, and this is just the way it is. It feels like this feels like a bigger cop-out to me than the actual wedding issue.
It was the fact that they were like, let's go get married right now, and then it's like, then it cuts to, they're in the bed the next one, they're like, oh yeah, I guess we forgot to get married. Oh well.
Well, I love that Judge Wolfman is a notorious drunkard, because they're going to catch him leaving the bar at 3 a.m. so Batman and Catwoman can get married. But I like vignettes in these. Like, I like that scene where they're in the bed together and they explain that. Like, I realize that King does interpersonal moments a lot better than he does big, like, these ideas. Like, the City of Bane ultimately is nothing. Like, City of Bane is only responsible for the death of Alfred. And other than that, it's not because Bane's not even really the real villain here.
Joe's so weird about City of Bane is you could literally have had a tie-in miniseries actually going into how the city's operating during this, because this book mostly ignored it. There was a couple of glimpses here or there, but we could have totally had a miniseries that might have been really good actually, of like showing the structure of the city and Bane being in charge and like what villains are doing what around the like.
But it's fine because we had a million tie-ins to the wedding.
Right. But again, that was part of the magic trick of them making us think that it was going off without a hitch. Like.
I'm not defending that.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm not defending it either. I'm just telling you.
And
that was
I
part
feel
of
like
the
just
trick.
there's so much cop hand. It's like you say, the wedding never actually happened. They were just like, we don't need to. Psycho Pirate just stands around and watches everything.
Right.
Bane was irrelevant.
We get Scarface's eye, which I still don't exactly understand how that works. My understanding of Scarface and Wesker is that Wesker's slightly telekinetic, and that one of his personalities is Scarface. So did this just prompt him to bring the Scarface personality back, or what? Like,
God knows.
Yes.
Who knows? Sure. That was a Catwoman holding the eye, or was it Batman? I don't know, but it was kind of funny. I got a chuckle out of it.
There's a lot of well-written scenes in this, and like the scene where they decide that they don't need to get married is fine on its own out of context, right? Like that, if that scene took place in like issue 45, like when they were sort of thinking about getting married, and then they had this conversation, I'd be completely okay with it. The problem is that they had this wedding, it didn't go through, but we're still dealing with the fallout of that, and we've been dealing with it for now like a year and a half, or whatever it's been, and and I was convinced after that issue 50 that no, this run has to end with them getting married. That's where it has to go, really, to really make it all kind of click together. And there was probably ways to not do it and still make it feel satisfying, admittedly, because I'm not going to claim that I know every possible satisfying outcome of a story, because I'm not a writer. But this specific way, where they just decide, nah, we don't really need to, us being together kind of eternally in the way we have been, can just continue on. Because the problem with that is that it makes it feel like nothing has really changed since the start of the run.
And you could have, if they'd like just not addressed it here yet, we'd have gone, well, it's coming at the end of Batman Catwoman, right?
Yeah.
And we gone, okay, fine. But now, if they do it in that book, it feels like just extra cheap because of this.
See, I don't think Batman Catwoman, I think, is definitely going to be. Well, we know Phantasm's involved, right? From art and whatnot. So I definitely think it's going to be about their relationship and how they work together and whatnot, and not so much about the marriage. I feel this puts the marriage to bed because he gives her a ring, sure, but, they're not going to be the typical married couple and whatnot. But no, like people were saying, there's a lot of good scenes in here. I just wish it had the feeling of this thing because, again, the whole City of Bane stuff, all of the nightmares, like them going in Hawaii and having that little layover and whatnot, like it all feels so disjointed, and it could have been done better. Like
I think the problem is, like I say, these scenes individually are well written enough. It's just that in context, I didn't care. It felt like it was just meaningless. Like I was going through the motions of ticking boxes of this is how we end this run.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like Flashpoint Batman became a last minute. Like I know they started seeding stuff in the button and whatnot, but I feel like we should have had more of him in here, because if this was his whole plan was to keep him from being Batman and whatnot, like I don't know, it just all feels like last minute.
I mean, if I was to critique the run as a whole, I think like King occasionally early on, and these issues tend to be very good, where he would break away from the regular arc and he would do like the little one or two parters where it would be more like he's been doing recently, where it's jumping around time and it's sort of playing with the structure, and they were typically well received by us. Like we were all usually pretty positive in those early days with those issues. The problem is he started doing that basically with every story after a certain point.
The same trick over and over, and it loses its appeal if you just keep doing it.
And I think City of Bane, I mean, maybe not even this. I think this last issue could have still done it this way to wrap up the ending, because it was sort of doing a bunch of different things. But I think
didn't care anymore.
But the main story of City of Bane, the point I'm making is that that's the main part of the story should have become more traditionally sort of straightforward, and just to have the drama, have the suspense, have like the threat of the city being under siege, go a bit more conventional with some of the actual action stuff, so that when we get to the ending, it feels like we've really been building through it in a normal way.
I feel like Bane doesn't matter.
Of course he doesn't.
Like, yeah, and so you call it City of Bane, and then he's dispatched with a kid.
That issue 50.
Yeah. So, and then for just all to be Thomas Wayne and stuff, that's fine. You know, he's the secret big bad, and then I just don't feel like what happens here was there wasn't enough. It's almost like the wedding again.
Yeah.
Like here, it's the resolution of Thomas Wayne, and I like what Bruce tells him, where he's like, "This is who I'm always going to be. I made this decision, but now I realize, you know, kids are dumb, and stuff that you decide as a kid isn't going to hold as an adult. And now I do this because I want to, not because I have to." And I like all of that. I like that sentiment out of Batman, and for what it means with him going forward without Alfred and a fractured Bat family. But did we even need Thomas Wayne to do that?
No, and I think, you know, on the structure thing in this issue, because it's so overdone in the last, I don't know, like 20, 30 issues, however long it's been since it felt like, you know, every issue has been like that. It made the fight and anything that happened in that, I just didn't care. Like, I was like, whatever. I was just kind of skipping through those scenes. Bored. I was still reading it, but it was kind of weightless. Even any of the good dialogue in there, I was just like, whatever.
Well, and then you get to Thomas's epilogue, and Bane murders him with a back break, right? Like, that's because he says he's done. And then I'm just like, well, he doesn't even get a fitting end? Like, I don't... Yeah. And I'm someone that I like Bane as a villain, right? Like, I argue with one of my friends and that he thinks Bane sucks. I was like, oh, he's got moments, like, used properly. I don't feel like he was used properly this entire run.
I like, in theory, Bane got to break a bat at last. You know, it worked for him.
Yeah,
I think it was weird having that and then continuing the fight with Bruce after in the narrative. Like, why was that not at the end?
I will disagree that he's not been used well the entire run. I loved the Bane stuff early on.
No, okay, the first 2 arcs or whatever it was, that first 3 arc stuff.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
I hated the I Am Suicide stuff, but
Matt always did.
Yeah, I Am Suicide and
him sitting naked on a thing of skulls.
Yeah, but I'm not just talking about that though. I'm talking about I Am Bane that came after we actually attacked Batman in the city.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. I like that.
I feel like all this, you know, because if that's all right, Bane comes back later, which is what we got in issue 50, and you're like, oh, Bane, this is his revenge, right? For the way he was kind of humiliated in City of Bane. This is him coming back now, and you kind of go, okay, that's what this run is. It's Batman. This is Bane's time to shine. His big masterpiece, and then it's just Thomas. Don't worry about it. Bane's a chump again.
Yeah, it shifted focus. Because I say this every time we end up talking about this, but I've not hated everything since the wedding issue because I really like that jury duty arc for Mr. Freeze.
So in Tynion's newsletter, he talks about, you know, going and reading Batman and King's Run, and now it's coming to an end, and that's probably one of the strongest Batman stories he's read in the last couple yees was the Mr. Freeze, and I agree. Like, it's probably my favorite Tom King Batman story.
I am obviously really excited for Tynion's run. I want to see what he does. Yeah. It's nice to have some fresh, you know, just a fresh team on Batman, just to get a different Batman style of story.
Yeah. And I definitely couldn't recommend this run to anyone now, though.
No.
It's a hard sell at this point.
I'll recommend the Double Date because that was fun.
I mean, well, this is the thing. I wouldn't recommend this run to someone just to read this run, but it's there's enough good in it that if you're a completionist who wants to just read the entirety of Batman, it's not one that I'd say you have to skip this because it's going to destroy you.
But if someone goes, hey, you know, shall I check out Tom King's Batman? I'm kind of interested. I like a few other things that Tom King's written. I'd go, probably not. Cherry pick a handful of stories. I'd, you know, the Double Day, the jury duty. You know, I'd give them, you know, a couple of trades here or there.
Stay away from Nightmares.
Yeah, but I wouldn't tell them to read the entire run by any means.
No, go find the Porky special or the Elmer Fudd special. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I can't say I recommend it. Like it is all, and it ruined my Poison Ivy. That's really, let's get down to why I really don't like it. That Poison Ivy arc, which I forgot about until thinking about this run as a whole, and I was like, oh yeah, they had that weird thing just to set up the Heroes in Crisis, which now doesn't seem to matter.
I hated that even at the time.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. Pete enjoyed it, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I didn't hate it at the time. But I like, obviously Heroes in Crisis has kind of coloured it a little bit in hindsight.
Yeah, and I will say I did love the War Jokes and Riddles. That's good. That was probably right after the Mr. Freeze stuff. I would put that there.
Those two Kate Man issues in the middle of that as well.
Yeah, it was real good. But yeah, Connor, although it did give us one of my favorite Connor moments, which was the Joker in the church.
Oh, the cross.
Yeah. So.
What the hell?
But yeah, I can't say. You kind of zero-yeared it. City of Bane kind of zero-yeared it. So.
I think it's interesting that both these two major runs from the last decade have turning points in the middle where you go, maybe just stop there.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do think that, because even Morrison says that, I do think that Batman's a character that benefits from not so long runs. I do think that it needs to be broken up, almost episodic, in that to it. Because as much as I love Morrison's run, there's parts of it in the middle where you start getting to the Dr. Hurt stuff, and it doesn't quite make sense.
Morrison not making sense.
Azrael, with Azrael, and then you had the all Joker prose issue. Yeah, we're like, what the hell, man? I get that you're taking risks, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Hopefully Tynion's run is fruitful, and if it is good, then hopefully long.
Which I guess we should talk about the 3-page epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Gilla March art is
He's on at least the first 2 or 3 issues of the run.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, yeah, we got Joker. He's doing Joker stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, he's talking about that they know. So he has these 2 goons putting razor wire in teddy bears.
Yeah, they're like, hey, Superman just came out with his identity.
Yeah.
Maybe Batman's next. Maybe you should capitalize on your knowledge before it happens and use it. And Joker's like, I'll do whatever the hell I want.
Well, he says, punchline only works once. So, you can't wind the Jack in a Box if he's already, flopping around. You can't put the Whoopi back in the cushion. So I think this is all great writing from Tynion.
Yeah.
For Joker.
So it's implying that Joker knows who Batman is, and he's going to use that in some way.
Well, he will, but he says this is the final laugh. That's the set ender, right? Like, he's approaching it like comedy.
Yeah, it says the end is coming 2020. So, I mean, they're implying some sort of climatic thing, which will not be climatic because it's comics, but like...
I think this is one of those things where going into 5G, it will be climactic.
For a while.
Potentially last for, a few years, which is as climatic as things can get in comics, let's be honest. So we'll take
Right. But yeah, as he bashes the henchman that brings that up into the teddy bear full of razor wire, and it's all very proper, scary Joker,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a shame the art just ruins it all, but
it does. We don't like Gillum March's art, but his Joker is
what a chin.
Yeah, it's not good. I don't like it. Art's subjective. I get it.
It's I mentioned the chin there, but I can take the long chin Joker. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's the big massive veins in the forehead.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's there's no composure to this Joker.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because we just got Suicide Squad number 1. We're getting a new run in Batman starting next month. I mean, there is kind of some refreshing going on. There's some new things starting. Obviously, the Hill House stuff just started recently, and we've been kind of digging that. So, but anyway, that's Batman 85, end of Tom King's run with an asterisk that there's also a mini coming soon. But Matt,
I was gonna say the Batcat stuff. If it hits more on that interpersonal stuff, then I'm gonna be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean,
if we get the first issue and it's narratively jumping back and forth, I'm out.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree with Connor there.
Well, I don't necessarily mind if it's jumping back and forth, but if it's more if it feels more contained, like a Mr. Miracle, where it feels more focused and like I'll be fine if it's jumping around if that's just the format of the book.
And here's the weird thing about Tom King is we're all stupidly excited for Strange Adventures, right? Like,
yep.
So we still think we just
bought him on Batman.
Yeah. So nothing against Tom King, but
And Heroes in Crisis did not help.
No, not at all. Heroes in Crisis might be my least favorite story.
Heroes in Crisis is the first DC event I haven't finished in God knows how long.
Yeah.
So I would be very curious to see, like, I don't know, like just like hopefully it's more Mr. Miracle and not his recent stuff, other stuff. But so Matt, what are you giving Batman 85?
I'm gonna give this because there are parts that I do like. I'm gonna give it a man. This is a tough one. I guess I'll give it a 7. The art's really good. Janin's art's good, but it is kind of a mess. So yeah, I'll go 7. I was gonna give it a 6.5, but I upped it.
Car?
I'm going to give it a 5 because while the scenes are perfectly well written on their own internal logic, I'm just the context and the weight behind it is just not there, and it kind of makes it feel kind of meaningless, even though it's objectively not badly written.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit of 5 as well, to be honest. I feel just kind of indifferent to it.
Well, then fine. Change mine to a 6.5.
I feel really indifferent to it, which is a shame because like there was a time when this run was one of the best things happening.
I mean, even go back to our annual last year, Batman was still in contention for one of the best books of the year. I don't know if we gave it to it, but it was up there.
The nightmares happened.
Nightmares definitely. I think Nightmares is definitely the weakest part of the run. Like,
I think Nightmares is that's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? There are things before that we didn't like, but that's the point where you go, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't done. We still read it all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
in your mindset.
Yeah. All right, that's Batman. That'll take us on to Justice League 38. Scott Snyder writing with Jorge Jimenez and Daniel Sempere on art. I still had Francis written in there from the last one. So I had Francis Jorge Jimenez, which I'm like, that's not a person.
So, I mean, it could be, but just not the artist.
Yeah. So, yeah, Justice League 38, which I said a lot of really negative sounding things about Justice League earlier. I actually think this issue is pretty focused and therefore better than... Like, I think, this is the penultimate issue, and it ends kind of with the exact sort of hopeful moment that the penultimate issue should have before it goes into the final issue.
Penultimate issue, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, I was ready for this penultimate issue like 4 issues ago, but other than
that's fair. But that's kind of a different complaint, isn't it?
Yeah. But this issue, for the most part, I was fine with. And again, because like I feel like I'm constantly nitpicking at Snyder's stuff, which makes it sound like I hate everything he does, and I don't. I'm constantly frustrated because I feel like a lot of it doesn't have the weight that it should, because it like I described it on Twitter today actually as he always throws in the kitchen sink no matter what without earning it. Is how I describe Scott Snyder's writing with mainline DC stuff recently. But anyway, obviously Justice League have just sort of shown their sign of strength. You've got Shane with Miss Martian trying to like sort of psychically like inspire hope around the world and justice, and that's changing the symbol in the sky.
And they're not strong enough to do it alone.
Yeah, and as much as it's kind of just like a really contrived formula here, I did actually kind of enjoy like the Justice League members one by one trying to fight Lex. As much as I hate Apex Lex, in fact, the worst thing about this book is the stupid tongue, the stupid reptile tongue. I hate with a passion, even though I love I love Jarrell jumping on his face and be like, "All right, Dad, you know, what is it he says? Lay the smackdown." I think he says,
"Bring the smackdown."
Bring the smackdown. Yeah, that was fun, but
but you got to be reminded that he's still a shapeshifter, you know. So it's a gigantic tongue.
He is. So it's not. It's there's no internal logic breaking. I get what Pete's saying though. It's like just because, right?
I mean, I've hated Apex Lex this whole time, so this is just another visual from him that I'm like, oh.
And we're gonna get a face off between face off between Apex Lex and Batman Who Laughs for who does Peter hate more? Whoever wins, we lose.
We'll get to Hell Arisen and all that later. But,
but my favorite moment in this book, of course, is the Superman moment when he punches Apex Lex through buildings.
He's saved for last, of course, because he goes through the Justice League and he takes on each one of them one by one, and then he gets to Superman. And I actually even thought, because Lex has a great line, but I actually even thought when Superman punched him, like, hey, that's probably the first time he's ever punched him full force, because he's Lex. He's always been a human, so that's just kind of neat. And he's like, that's what you not holding back feels like. Disappointing.
Yeah,
I think that's actually a really great Lex line.
No, it is.
It is.
That feels like Lex.
It is.
Everything else doesn't, but it does.
But yeah, and so they keep going, and then you get, Kendra leading this charge where they're Miss Martian and Shane are trying to connect to everybody, and but it's still not enough, and so the Trinity take Apex Lex down.
Yeah.
A pig.
Perpetua shows up, all hope seems lost, but Shane takes it upon himself to go into Lex, so he goes into Lex's mind and essentially sacrifices himself so that because in his head Jean looks young, so it's like young kid Jean, but he's like, no, Jean, you have to go out there because you're strong enough to use your powers to help everyone, and I'll stay in here. And the final,
I thought that was a nice touch of bringing back stuff from earlier in the run with young Jean, and also kind of giving Shane this sacrificial moment and giving us Jean back, yet not ruining Apex Lex in the sense of it doesn't just make an easy win. Apex Lex still exists as Apex Lex, which I know Pete probably doesn't like, but I feel like they have to at least earn the victory at this point.
Yeah, so the final page is Jean's back. He's like, I'm the Martian Manhunter, big font. I guess that's his logo, but I mean, he doesn't really have a consistent font, so like I don't really. Yeah, it's just kind of whatever.
It's the logo as it is now. Yeah. I'm sure.
Because if this was like Superman, it'd be the Superman logo font, and we'd all recognize it and go, "That's the Superman font." But this is like, okay, I guess this is what Jean's got now.
Same with Batman. It looks real gothic.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman as well. Yeah, the wings coming out.
Starsy.
Yeah. Green Lantern's got a font. Flash has got they've all got their font that we associate with them.
And this probably is much matters that it was probably on that book that he's just had.
Yeah.
But we just don't see it often enough to know.
Yeah. No. So I thought it was a tight issue. It was really simple. It was just them trying to take on Lex. They're failing. And ultimately Shane gets Jean back, which is kind of our final moment of hope before the last issue. So I thought this was as much as I hate the Lex tongue and stuff, but all my complaints about Apex Lex are just how he exists already anyway. So this issue on its own I thought was solid.
Kind of like your complaints about Connor.
Yes, they're all ongoing. Although every so often he'll surprise me with a new one.
Well, no, because you said all your problems with Apex Lex are that he exists. Kind of like Connor got it.
I did. Yeah.
All right, fine.
I really like how Snyder's putting Jean up on this pedestal here after so many years of Jean being kind of shafted in terms of Justice League books.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's like, and Jean is the key here.
Well, yeah, and we got that. I just remember in Blackest Night when he gets infected, and Johns writes him in a way that he goes, "People forget that I'm stronger than Superman."
It's terrifying, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and so we get to see him realize his potential here that he's been trapped. He's unwittingly helped cause all of this, and now it's gonna
now it's time for justice.
Hopefully. But we know because of some other books that we read that
honestly this was like really deflated to me because I'm not talking about the book yet, but there's an editor's note in Hell Arisen that says obviously this takes place after 38 and 39 of Justice League, and Lex mentions a couple of times in that book that he defeated the Justice League, which implies that this doesn't have the happier ending that we were kind of expecting it to end with.
And Tynion actually spoke about this in his newsletter, and he said, for whatever reason, the editorial, they couldn't get it to line up, and it was really disappointing to him.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. And it makes me kind of, I don't know, I feel really weird about the last issue of Justice League now. I'm like, well, I guess there has to be...
It kind of feels a little bit irrelevant in an unfortunate way, where like if Hell Arisen hadn't started till next month, right? We could have started it 1 month later, and we could have had Justice League 39 come out before it, just earlier in the month.
Yeah,
and we could have had a probably genuine surprise that the Justice League lost, right?
I mean, could we have just like held this issue, or not this issue, but held Hell Arisen back and just double shipped for 1 month after Justice League 39? Would that have been possible, just to make it line up properly? But I don't know.
I'm just
It's not this.
looking to see what he said.
It's not like this week was hunting for books, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, what Tynion said is, the events of the issue followed 39, which is obviously coming out next month. Originally, we wanted to line up with 38, but so it was actually because they expanded the Justice Doom War by an issue. There was originally this was going to be the last issue, and they expanded that an extra issue, and this would already in motion by the time this had happened.
It's frustrating.
So it would have done it, but yeah.
Oh well. It was a solid issue. I mean, I can't really. Obviously, Jimenez's art and Semper's art's pretty solid as well.
The odd panel here or there that I think has some odd faces again. I think we spoke about this last time. I think Tim's face in that panel where Kendra's leading the charge with a bunch of heroes. Mm-hmm. Tim has a bit of a strange, demented grin going on.
Yeah, I will say this is kind of like the art is definitely the weakest so far of the books we've talked about, but
kind of unfair though, because the other books have had some great art, so it's not like this is bad.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying this is bad. This is pretty solid for the most part. It's just it kind of sticks out as just being it's fine art.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Where the three books, because even Batman, which we know we're super positive on, Janin's art's very good.
Janin, right? He brings his A game, except when he gets crosses.
But yeah. So what are you rating Justice League, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Connor?
Yeah, 7.5 for me as well.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.5. I think that's fair. Fair for this one. So that's just League. That'll take us out to Batman Superman number 5. Again, we're putting this before Hell Arisen because obviously this kind of leads to Hell Arisen too. So this is Joshua Williamson writing with David Marquez on the art, and or the art's back up a little tick again because Marquez is fantastic.
Marquez is pretty great. Yeah, I mean, this is a great week overall for art. Well, the three books we already mentioned, Marquez. We had Harleen this week.
Yeah, obviously we'll get to that in next episode.
Well, that'll be part 2. But in terms of actually released this week in great artists, yeah. Yeah,
so the art's gorgeous, which is good because I think this issue suffers a little bit from mostly just being one big group fight.
Yeah.
Oh, Matt,
Matt.
Because, it's them fighting the Secret Six and having various, there's moments where, like, Batman yells out in Kryptonian to get that's pretty cool. The beast thing to sort of attack him.
To open.
Yeah, that's fine. And like the Superman and Batman deal with this big satellite thing. What did they call it last issue that made me laugh? I forget.
I don't know.
It was something silly, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And Superman sees like the dead Justice League from the Batman Who Laughs Earth, including like himself with his family, and
I actually think that's one of the best moments of the book. Is that part of Superman just on his knees breaking down, seeing that, even though it's not his family, his family are fine. Just seeing it,
it's really good. Do I really like in here actually? The page after that, there's a shot of Shazam and Supergirl. Or whatever we're
silhouettes with the symbols lit up.
Yeah, but what I like about it is actually the texture on the black. It's not just solid black. It's got like a kind of like it's almost as if it's a
starry effect.
I'd almost describe it as like a printing that's kind of worn out a little bit intentionally.
Yeah, that's a good way.
But it gives it this kind of texture that gives it a feel that I really like actually.
Yeah. So also I just realized. Remember we got a question of who team ups and stuff that you'd like to see, and one of my go-tos was Kara and Shazam. I just realized that Williamson gave us Kara and Shazam, albeit they're dark and twisted.
Technically, yes, you did get it.
Yes,
so that's right. But
and there's that great full page spread after this where he's got both of them by the neck, like
And Kara looks terrified.
I forgot how top tier this art was.
Yeah.
Until I'm flicking through it now. I read this one of the earlier books, right? Obviously, I needed to read it before Hell Arisen and such.
Right.
And I'd kind of forgotten that. Yeah, man, there's some great looking pages in this.
It's so basically the Batman Who Laughs has he sent in his marching orders from his jail in the Hall of Justice, but he through the commissioner. But it's basically keep Superman occupied with King Shazam and
which eventually Batman realizes, and Batman actually pulls out the Scarab from Blue Beetle because Jaime's the one who's infected. The Scarab itself isn't.
Right.
So he pulls out the Scarab, and we see Batman kind of going all Blue Beetle-esque,
It's kind of
essentially.
a shame we don't see him go full Beetle.
Yeah, he's
That
got like
would've
the
been-
one
Yeah.
arm and like one, he's
And
around half of his head. Yeah.
It's definitely implanted into the back of the neck
Yeah.
where it usually is.
So basically, they deal with the big device that he's got, but this is all a distraction so that the team can go to the Hall of Justice and basically break out. The final, well, not even the final page, but they get to the cell, and there's just a big "ha" written on the wall, and he's out. The Batman Who Laughs is out.
I kind of like this in theory.
So do I. Well, I like it too,
sure.
and with the commissioner, where he's talking about, I've seen a lot in my time, and this is the strongest I've ever been.
Yeah,
Because now I just don't care
out
and
of
stuff.
all-
I like all that.
Out of all this stuff, which is building to Hell Arisen, I definitely have liked Batman Superman way more than any of the other Year of the Villain stuff. Like,
I think I've been enjoying stuff like Hawkman more
Yeah.
personally, but
I like them both. really
that's not
Supergirl.
that's not to say it's been bad
Yeah.
by any means.
yeah, we see Batman Superman like basically kind of telling all the various like families. We see Superman's just with Crypto, telling Crypto about
Aw.
Kara. And we see, the Titans getting told about Donna Troy and so on, and they're on their way. And the final page is them going to tell Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman is
I
going to be
think-
pissed.
The one that I really like in these panels that we're talking about is Superman going to the Shazam family
Mm-hmm.
and just seeing the burning Shazam logo in the city.
Yeah,
Yep, that's pretty good.
yeah.
Pretty good.
So no, I mean, I think it's a solid issue of the book. I think it just suffers a little bit from 'cause after I read it, because I read a few, because there's a lot of books this week. I started reading, making a point of reading on Wednesday, and
Yeah.
I had to skim a few of them again. And this was the one that I was struggling. I was like trying to remember what happened in it, and I couldn't remember until I skimmed it. And I think it's because it is mostly just one big fight. And there's
It's a lot of setup, isn't it?
yeah,
It's not bad. It flows, and and I think if you're gonna do one big fight, you better have a damn good artist.
and it's very pretty. It's a very pretty book. So, I don't take this as a complaint because it's really solid. So, that's Batman Superman number 5. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna give this an 8. 8.5. No, I'm gonna give it 8.5. I really liked it.
Connor.
I was gonna give it a 7, but then looking at the art, I'm actually gonna bump that up to a 7.5.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I will give it. I'll still give it a straight 8. I think. I'll give it a straight 8. I think it, like, when I actually read it again, it actually is pretty good. It's just,
Yeah.
it's for maybe it's just a case of having too many books or whatever. But that's
It could be expectations as well.
Yeah.
That you expect so much, then it's just a fight scene. But on that second, when you're kind of rereading it essentially, and you know what it is,
yeah.
maybe you get more enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, which will take us on to kind of the main event of these, because obviously we did Justice League, Batman, Superman in this order because we're kind of building to Year of the Villain, even though, I think arguably Batman, Superman does perfectly line up because he just got out,
Yep.
so it
Yeah.
kind of lines up with this, but obviously Justice League doesn't. But this is Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen issue 1, James Tynion the Fourth, and Steve Epting. Although
And
notably,
I can't believe that when I was talking about great artists this week, I didn't mention Epting.
yeah, notably, on Comixology, this is actually called Justice League Hell Arisen issue 1, and I don't know why, but like everywhere else is calling it Year of the Villain Hell Arisen issue 1, but just
Yeah.
for the record.
Yeah. Just on the art, from the start, Nick Filati is the colorist on this. I'm pretty sure this isn't Epting's usual colorist,
I don't
right?
think
'Cause
so.
It feels different.
Yeah, because when I forgot it was Epting, and then I went back, I was like, oh yeah, it is him. But yeah, it feels a little bit off. Which
I think it's because
works,
it's so
though.
bright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it starts off with being a year ago, and the Batman Who Laughs tries to infiltrate LexCorp R&D, and Lex is there, and this starts off as hints at their conflict to come.
Yeah, this is kind of lined up with the early Justice League stuff, actually.
Yep. And so, basically he says that the Batman Who Laughs is just like, you're not going to kill me. You're too smart for that. I came here because you came here because I wanted to see how much you already knew. So he's kind of hinting at that Lex is already going to be, the stuff with the totality and all of that. But,
yeah, and we get Earth 3 here. This is kind of what we were referring to earlier, where we see Ultraman, making a speech. You go back to the crime syndicate, and they're aware that Perpetua is incoming, and because of who they are, they're like, well, we want to cozy up to her, and
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that she is the queen of the multiverse and the harbinger of doom. She ain't the Batman Who Laughs, though. Like, I she comes to Earth 3 and sees how messed up it is. I don't think she's going to see that it's because of Doom, right? Because Doom still has this self-preservation kind of behind it. It's not necessarily evil.
You might be right, and I think that might be
Yeah.
the crime syndicate not understanding that.
Exactly. And so that's what I like. So they're doing all these big acts of destruction. Like Ultraman's like, yeah, I'm trying to, and this is another thing that cracked me up. Him trying to kill as many people as possible by aiming for large buildings at the bottom and seeing how much destruction he can get. Because that's something that Ultraman does and not Superman. Takes out large buildings without a care.
Yeah, he wants to rack up some kills for points. He wants points from the big evil overlord.
And Owlman has dropped a psychoactive into the Gotham reservoir that's making the people of Gotham, go crazy. It's like a rage virus kind of deal.
The murder rate's up 1,000% or something like that.
Yep. And
so yeah, basically they'll make a deal, and she sends them back to their Earth to sort of prepare for me and whatever she says. But Lex is given an army of Apex drones, predators, whatever they're called. I don't know.
Predators.
Yeah. And he's back to Earth Zero. He's back to the regular Earth. And of course, Batman Who Laughs has got Rip Hunter captured.
Yeah,
Interestingly.
this has got some really interesting stuff given what we learn in Doomsday Clock.
Yep.
Yes.
Rip Hunter, they talk about that. What Perpetua's done has broken hyper time.
Yep. And hyper time is this concept where, if you want to explain how things happen in continuity, how the, Superman can be around for so long, but still, have aspects from the 70s, 80s, 90s. And it's because of hyper time, and that was a key to the whole 0 hour stuff in the 90s.
Yeah.
With Parallax and Monarch and all of that type of stuff. So the fact that it's broken now means like this is it. This is the point in time that basically it's the perfect time to attack.
Yeah, and just to go back to what Doomsday Clock was teasing, because I think it's relevant here.
Yeah.
Is it talks about there's the crisis that fixes time, the way time works in the DC universe essentially, and if that's maybe fixing hyper time or replacing it, I can see that being the outcome of this upcoming crisis. And I say upcoming, the Monitor tells us, the crisis already started in this issue. It's already begun, and we just haven't realized it.
Yeah, we're at crisis level. So Lex goes to his goes to the museum or whatever, and he basically gets intel on like what the Secret Six is, and he's looking at them, and they of course show up and attack him, and he takes them on, kind of. He's like, and this is kind of where he drops. I took on the Justice League, blah blah blah. He's really there to kind of rub that in. Batman Who Laughs shows up on the screens and kind of lays down a bit of a gauntlet. And I have to admit, I did kind of like the final line of this book.
Batman wins.
Yes, because he says, and spoilers, and you turn page, Batman wins. So the Secret Six are sort of standing in front of Lex to take him on.
I kind of love the idea of the evil Batman here co-opting in, because Batman.
Yeah.
That kind of works.
So I like it, and I'm rooting for Lex.
Of course you're rooting for. So I hate that this is still Apex Lex. This like I think this is better written than the recent issues of Justice League. I think it flows quite well. But I have to admit, this mini for me is mostly about let's get rid of all this stuff and end it all.
The mini itself, I'm not that excited by because I know it's just this is part of the road to crisis of whatever Time Master, road to Time Master. That's what this is, and I think in a couple of years we will have that kind of be an official designation.
Yeah, because Rip says here that time's not set anymore.
Yeah,
and that plays into Doomsday Clock. So
yeah, well, I mean, they've already announced there's a mystery free comic book day issue that there always is, so that presumably is going to set up the summer event, which will likely be this crisis.
This is going to finish in this is 4 issues.
Yeah, it's March.
Right? So this is going to finish in March.
Yeah, because we got that
solicit usually May.
Early May.
May first Saturday May.
Yeah, so probably I'm going to see the crisis starting June or July and finishing by the end of the year, maybe.
Yeah, I think June. I mean, hell, it could even be the end of May. Like, it could be like, here's your preview thing at start
It
of
could.
May.
I think it really depends on how they want to announce this, because obviously with the way the solicits work, depends how close they want to leave it till that free comic book day to announce stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's just fine. I think it's solid enough. It's weird that it's playing with, Batman Who Laughs, I think it's a fine concept, but he's been overused. And then Apex Lex I flat out dislike. But bizarrely, it's fairly well written, and everything it's building
It kind of works when
seems
you
fun.
throw them together against each other, doesn't it?
Oddly. It's one of these things where I'm not super excited about any of the concepts in the book itself.
But it's pretty enjoyable to read.
But I'm excited that we're finally just ending this year of the villain crap, and we can move on from it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best part of all this.
I'm glad to end Year of the Villain.
Yes, I stand by it. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. I was expecting more Dark Multiverse stuff, but it does seem to be teasing that for soon.
I'm sure we'll get to it.
Because Perpetua brings up the Dark Multiverses in this and says, "Hey, we need to deal with this or whatever."
Yeah, even she doesn't like the Dark Multiverse because she's like, it's a corruption of my multiverse and it should not exist. And yeah. So, and we could see the Anti-Monitor has become the World Forger.
Yeah,
right? That's scary.
We're going to get to a point where we're going to form some sort of like Dark Justice League made up of all these Dark Multiverse rejects to take on Perpetua.
This is where the Dark Multiverse one shots are going to come into play.
Yeah, so,
Tempest Fujinot is going to go collect some of those.
So it'll be Gaia. It'll be.
We'll definitely have the Gaia.
Beetle. Super Lois.
Super Lois,
Lobo or Sinestro, I forget who survived the Blackest Night.
Who survived Nightfall? Who was at the end of that?
He was the Nano
Son of
Batman.
Bane.
Son of Bane, yeah. Okay.
No. It was the headless Batman, or the bodiless Batman. Remember they gave him the nanotech?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Son of Bane was there as well, though, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, but he wasn't the. If you're gonna collect, it's gonna be the Nano Batman.
Oh, they might take both. Who knows?
But yeah. So I'm looking at all those. That's a pretty formidable team when you look at them all.
Yeah.
But do they fight on Batman Who Laughs side, because they seem like I don't see them being. I don't know. They're all very Batman Who Laughs of themselves. You know what I mean? They don't seem to want to take orders. So maybe they're just the wild cards.
Maybe I don't know, but this is definitely where they're going to pop up. I'm fairly sure of it. So, there you go. That's You're the Villain, Hell Arisen issue 1. We'll see how that plays out. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Connor?
Yeah, 7.5 as well. It's pretty enjoyable.
I will give it a straight 7. So there you go, Hell Arisen issue 1, which will take us on to a new Black Label book this week, Wonder Woman Dead Earth issue 1, Daniel Warren Johnson both writing and doing the art. So another oversized book. This is a post-apocalyptic world where Diana wakes up after being in cryosleep or whatever after a long stretch of time. And wakes up in a post-apocalyptic Gotham. She's in the Batcave. This group of characters sort of stumble into her because they're hiding from like a beast. There's been mutations, in the post-apocalyptic world.
They think there was a nuclear fallout event, but they don't actually know for sure.
Well, they say it's been so long ago that it's all kind of hearsay and just kind of legend now.
And the people who did live and survive and knew what happened refused to write it down or really share the story properly because it was too horrific.
Which we may get like more of that later. We may get more reveals, but do you know what's so fair about this is that like at the start of almost at the very start of the book, because I knew very little about this before I started reading it, and as soon as it started and she woke up, I went, "Is Themyscira okay? Can she go to Themyscira?" So I kind of chuckled, not in a bad way, but I chuckled at the end when the end of the book is her turning around saying, "No, there's a place where we can go. Like there's a place that should be okay, and that's Themyscira."
Which means it's almost definitely not, right?
Very probably. But this issue is basically them finding her, and one of them dies. One woman does her best to like sort of help. She takes one of Batman's belts and like some old armor and stuff, and kind of like does a makeshift kind of outfit. Goes with these younger sort of scavengers, who we find out are kind of ruled by this kind of overlord dude. I think kind of like not like the exact same type of character, but like in The Walking Dead, how you'd have these factions. You might have someone like Negan who's like in control. Here you've got this guy who wants like offerings and will just take a woman as his wife because he wants to, and things like
Honestly,
that.
I think a better example would have been for Mad Max Fury Road.
Sure, okay, yeah, that's a fair comparison. But these kids, even though they're kind of decent people from the sounds of it, they syringe Wonder Woman and kind of hand her over as an offering. And Wonder Woman does forgive them though, and she's like sort of made to fight in gladiatorial combat essentially, with probably the most contrived part of the book, which is the beast she ends up fighting is actually a mutated cheetah.
Yep. And which tells us that okay, maybe it hasn't been ridiculously long, or maybe cheetah can just live longer. Who knows?
I do like the design of this mutated cheetah though, because the actual head is on her arm, and then her face has got this big sort of like, it's almost like the Joker smile, but only on one side.
It kind of looks like Doomsday though, right? Because it's like with the bones protruding out.
Yeah, but it's like her teeth. It's like this extended mouth going up the side of her face, but only on one side. It's kind of an interesting design. But these beasts attack this camp. The only thing I didn't really like about this part of it really was just they've got this many people to fill an arena to watch this fight. That feels a bit weird.
I mean, to be fair, it did tell us this is like one of the last cities, so it makes sense that they all congregate here behind these big stone walls. So I was like, okay, I'll buy it. These
beasts come charging in. The guards are having trouble. Of course, when they get in, Wonder Woman starts fighting them. It essentially turns the tide of victory, so everyone kind of like falls in line with her. She throws the former leader in her old cell, and this is where she makes a big speech about going to Themyscira, and that's kind of where the story leaves off. I thought this flowed quite well. I think, for a book that's like, triple page count versus a regular issue. It's like
44 pages of story or something like that.
Yeah, it reads pretty quickly because it doesn't overword the thing. There's very few pages where I felt there was a lot of text. There was a lot of like really just that will tell it in the art.
One of those examples where this is, the writer and artist are the same person, and they know exactly what they want to achieve with their art, and they know exactly whether or not they're achieving that, and if they need extra dialogue or not.
Yeah, so it becomes, it's this journey with these kids. We kind of get to know them a little bit, and I'd say the art's good. It's not like necessarily my favorite style of art, but I think it's very consistent in.
Yeah, I think there are people here who will hate this art, and because of the style, it's very different to some of the stuff.
Yeah, that's so. I started reading it. I didn't get to finish it, and I saw the page count and crunch for time. But I was not enjoying the art from the pages I read.
Personally, I was really into it. I think it's the colors that really help get me into it here. I don't know if he's doing his own colors as well, or someone else doing that. Mike Spicer doing the colors. I think that it does a great job of kind of bringing it to life for me.
Yeah, it was one of those things where like. I would never necessarily pick this for like an in-continuity Wonder Woman book, or even an in-continuity any DC book really, but for its own kind of world. This is the sort of art I expect on like an Image book that's like creator owned and it's just set in this own world and that's all it is. But for lack of a better, this essentially is, even though it's coming from a DC
it's
property.
Playing with Wonder Woman, sure, but it is essentially a creator owned story in the sense of just do what the hell you want, we don't care.
So, I don't know, it was not bad though. Like I was kind of like, we're at this point now where we've got so many of these Black Label books where, and some of them are so high quality that this does feel kind of like more middle of the pack. But middle of the pack for this is actually really good at this point.
I actually agree with that. I think this is on the lower end of the scale of Black Label books that we've tried, but it's still really good. And I had a blast reading it, and I'm definitely intrigued to see more.
Yeah, I might read this shit too, and I feel like I didn't really know who Daniel Warren Johnson is, but all of a sudden I'm like,
now if I see a book by him, I might check it out if it's got a premise I'm half interested.
I thought it worked. I thought it went in nice and quickly, especially good given the page count, and did enough to make me kind of care about some of these new characters who are kind of struggling
about the world and what other heroes will show up. We know Batman's dead. We see his body. But where's Superman? What happened? What are we going to learn? Why was Diana in stasis in the Batcave?
I feel
a clone? I think maybe a clone.
Oh, maybe. because she does say she's weaker than she remembers she should be, and she does have some amnesia. I mean, she remembers who she is and like who like Batman is and stuff, but she doesn't remember why she was in the cryo sleep. She doesn't remember why she was in there, which might suggest clone, especially given that she is again physically a bit weaker. She's still strong, but she's not as strong as she remembers being.
Yeah.
I will say my guess right now would be that the catastrophe that did all this is probably one of the heroes, like maybe Superman himself. Something bad happened to him with maybe like a type of kryptonite or something, and he went supernova or something like that.
Could have been, yeah. That sunblast power that he has now.
Yeah, I would guess something like that. If not him, maybe Firestorm, or he's another maybe obvious choice. Like,
no, I'm with you. It could have been like that. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But all these things I'm interested to find out.
Yeah. So, very intrigued. And likewise, Superman could still be around somewhere, potentially, if he's not dead, if he wasn't the one who caused the explosion.
Yeah, and we don't really know what the rest of the world's like. We barely know what the rest of America is
yeah,
like.
because they theorize that everywhere's like this, but they kind of point out that it's only where we have been we know is like this, which is not that much of an area, really, because they're all walking. It's not like they're...
Gotham's just that much of a crap hole. Like, you get to Metropolis and it's fine.
So
Joe, I watched something recently. I can't even remember what it was with that exact kind of plot.
Yeah,
I'm sure I did, and it got to the end, and it was like, oh, you poor bastards! You think everywhere's like this?
Yeah, there was an episode of Futurama like that where Fry thinks that he gets frozen again and ends up in the future, and it's like a Mad Max like hellscape where kids rule, and then they come to find out that
it's a week.
They've only been asleep for 45 minutes.
I know what movie it was now. It's something I watched. I won't spoil it because if I say the name,
right?
It was a movie from last year, and it wasn't that good. I'll be honest with you. It was something that Pete. I don't know if he saw it. We definitely watched the trailer at some point though, so I'll tell you after if you're still interested.
All right. But no, in Futurama, ended up they were just in L.A. and that's what LA looks like in the year 3000, whatever it was. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, and it has some good Wonder Woman beats because she's like, she forgives the guy who locked her up. So, we'll still lock him up because he's dangerous, but like, no, like I'm still going to help you even though you turned on me because all humans deserve grace was the I think the phrase. So. And
this is every other month, so next issue's in February.
Yeah, which makes some sense. So, what you give it, Connor?
I'm just gonna give this a straight 8. Really enjoyable, solid.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8 as well. I thought it was pretty good. So that'll take us out to the final book of the week, which is another new Black Label book. So there was 2 Hell House books this week. We'll do the other one in the next episode. But this is the Lolo Woods issue 1 with Carmen Maria Machado writing with Dani Strips on the art. So
just credit it as Dani in the book as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Comixology told me Dani Strips, so you get more.
I'm just saying. Generally speaking, this is how they're credited as in every press release. So I just thought, that's how.
Every time Pete defends himself, I just imagine that that Will Ferrell character from SNL that yells, "You don't interrupt me!" Like,
I can get behind that sentiment. I can get behind that sentiment.
Yeah.
So this is our third Hell House book. This is set in a small town. That, and I'd say like even more so than the other 2, this one kind of is more abstract and it doesn't really make it necessarily clear what the actual horror story is going to be. There's a couple of what the F moments towards the end,
and one in the middle,
sure, with the weird deer-like kind of creature thing.
It's like a centaur but a deer.
Yeah, so it sets up these 2 main characters. This pair of girls,
V and L.
Yeah, and it's mainly told from Elle's perspective. She's the one narrating the story, and they fell asleep at a movie which was Sea Dogs, which is the backup stories, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's quality when one of the other writers poking fun at it. But yeah.
I do like the idea though that like that backup is actually a movie in within like this universe for at least one of the books. That's kind of funny to me.
It's very Stephen King, right? From what I understand from talking to Tim, is there's stuff like that all over Stephen King's writing.
Random little links that are kind of meaningless, but they're just there.
So
anyways,
they're going home, but we find out some big mythology stuff. We find out that there was a big coal mining town, And
yeah, so they're in Pennsylvania in coal country.
Yeah, so there's a big disaster. And all the coal miners refused to work. More came in, and then they eventually refused to work. But essentially, there was a fire underground. For and it's still apparently raging. Like the ground's still warm. And what's funny about this is I think this is actually loosely based on a real thing.
There's this. I was just bringing up. It's called Centralia, and it's in coal country. A fire started underneath, and the town is just underneath is on fire, and everybody had to leave. So you can go to this town still. You can't stay for very long, but it's been burning since May 27th, 1962. They still don't know what caused it, but
the ground is literally warm, like it's hot.
Yep. And so in this book in Low Woods, it's like people can't stay in there, like the basements and cellars, because it's like an oven, and that the ground bubbles up like burst skin, and that like when there's a blizzard, the ground's so hot that the snow just melts. So you can, walk from one side of town and be just fine. And it's a really good, like, tone atmosphere setting.
Yeah, they set up, I think you just said it there, actually, but they set up the whole idea of the, like, even, like, when it snows, the snow just instantly
it
vaporizes.
Kind of makes it this ethereal, like, you know how you get, like, the movies set in the places that are always light, like 20 hours a day. It's kind of that where it's always kind of summer. It's not warm necessarily, it's not hot, sunny, but the ground, at ground level, it always feels like it's basically summer.
Yeah, so and they set up some things where obviously the men got sick because of what they were, the mining and stuff. But they mentioned this weird element where the women in town would get sick as well in a different kind of really peculiar way, where they start blacking out and waking up, and to the point where she says that there used to be a joke that you knew a girl would hit puberty when she'd wake up on the steps, and like it almost sounds really like kind of creepy, like because that implied to me that some girls were getting assaulted when they were blacking out during some
possibly.
of these time periods.
Although to me I didn't quite get that, because I got the sense of they were off doing something and they found them when they woke up, and they didn't necessarily, they never knew where they were when they were blacked out. No one else had seen them blacked out. It was just, oh, you're awake, where have you been? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I just woke up here.
Oh no, I got that. I'm saying though that during that time, if someone found them,
well, okay, sure, but what I'm saying is I don't think anyone did find them. I think that, they were off doing something for some sort of entity, perhaps. I don't think there was like, a physical interaction with other people in the way that you're suggesting.
Well, no, I'm saying they're just lying there passed out. I'm not saying they're doing something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they are lying there passed out. I think that's the opening of this book very clearly kind of gets that. They wake up in the cinema and they have these odd memories of which one of them had the popcorn, but there's mud on their shoes that wasn't there before. They've been out and back.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, when they bring this up in the middle of the book, your mind immediately goes back to the opening, because they literally fell asleep in the movie and are confused as to what they were doing there before.
And this was a trait of the town before the fire underneath started too. So it was the small little town where the men got sick from coal mining, right? And then the women were just like spaced out for some other thing.
But it does also sound like it stopped for a long time. It's it sounds like this was something that used to happen and used to be a thing. And
I wonder if the fire stopped it, and now maybe the fire's kind of going out.
Yeah, maybe, because it sounds like this is like a surprise, but they don't even necessarily assume that's what's happened to them. They're just like, oh, we must have fell asleep watching the movie, like no biggie, right? Bit weird, but no biggie.
Well, and then also, so now I'm going back over it, and it just sounds like this town was a hellscape, because it says like babies were born with placentas black as soot, so glossy and opaque, it looked like the mothers were birthing coal itself. People couldn't breathe, dead babies crawling in their cradles. Some of them, the women disappeared at night. Some of the men too. They went underground but never came back up. And you're like, damn, man, like some proper horror.
Yeah, and we see the girls with their parents. We see that both girls are into girls, because there's references from one of them, and then V actually has a crush on this girl at school, who we see she actually does spend time with. In fact, the end of the book is one of the WTF moments at the end is there's this like streak of fire outside the window, And then when we go inside the room after she's sleeping next to the other girl, she gets up and she's got like fire coming from her finger, and she gets up to go to the bathroom, and then we see the final page. The girl she was with has a vortex / hole in her stomach.
But she still seems asleep.
Yeah,
like, she's just like, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. Honestly, none of that. This last couple of pages is interesting. None of it makes any sense. I can't make any heads or tails over any of it means.
I'm absolutely with you there, and but I'm still so into it.
Like, I don't know if, like, the girl with the fire on her finger, V, like, did she cause this to the other girl, or was the other girl the one who's unique and did something to her finger? Like, I don't know who's causing what, or if some third party just come in and done this to both of them.
I suspect a more random element, in the sense that the fire, it hits outside the house, it seems. It goes, we see it outside the window, and then we see her finger, and she notably does not touch Jessica, I think is her name.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't touch Jessica after that. She goes straight to the bathroom to try and she my finger's on fire, it's burning, better run this under the cold tap. And then it's when she comes back out that she sees this. So I don't think she's inherently caused it.
Mm-hmm. So it's very weird. And like I said, there was a run-in when they're going home, notably, like, one's riding a bike and the other one's sort of standing on the bike. And I kind of took that as kind of a running thing in this town, where you don't want to be walking on the ground for too long. You have to kind of keep yourself off of it.
Well, and I like that, too. That's kind of hinted at, where she goes, it's a deal that we made. My legs get stronger and she doesn't have to walk by herself.
Yeah.
And it's their friendship here, too, is that it seems like Elle's kind of the tough one, right? Like, she's the one that'll take the lumps for the other, because she drops her off at this girl's house, so they can, have their relationship. And she's like, yeah, I don't mind getting you laid. Like, I enjoy it. And I'll just go home and be by myself. Like, there's this friendship quality there that almost symbiotic.
Yeah, and she really, the only thing we established with Elle in terms of romance is that she's got a bit of a crush on the teacher. That they have. So, I mean, there's some character stuff been set up there, and then we obviously on the way home they do have the incident where they see this animal, this creature that kind of like is scary for a second, then sort of runs away. So they're setting up some different stuff here, and it's funny because Dollhouse Family kind of also, by the end of the first issue, was like, okay, we've got to grasp of some of this, but how does it connect to Celestial stuff? This feels even weirder, where I don't even understand how all these things connect to each other at all yet.
No, I'm with you, but I'm kind of in for the ride.
I'm very curious.
And there's the guy who was the cinema attendant who they know from school, but he's like
super creepy.
Did you enjoy the movie? And he's got that weird grin. He knows something happened.
He seems to. Yeah.
Well, and you look at that page of them with the popcorn, and it's very sexual on V's, with the lips and the straw and whatnot.
Yeah, this is getting back to me thinking there's something sexually weird going on here when they're blacking out.
And then they talk about and even Elle's talking about a book.
But even the joke though, like about what she says, people used to say you knew someone had hit puberty when they wake up like this. Like, even though that's not necessarily saying for sure something sexual happened, I think bringing it up along the same line as puberty is intentionally in our heads putting the idea that this is something sexual or something about coming of age.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I'm also there's that thing about birds that I didn't notice till now. That if you look at Elle's head in that same panel, there's a parrot in there, right?
Which panel are you referring to? The kind of trippy
on the movie
one
theater page. Yeah. Right before she throws up and she notices the boots, or not the boots, the shoes. Right, and then that bird. So they bring up the book, The Awakening, about a woman that decides that she's not happy with her life and whatnot. And there's a lot of birds in that book.
And the birds are the warning to get out.
Yeah. So but then you look at her friend B, and her hands make a thing where it almost looks like a mine, or like there's a darkness with a being in there.
A person as well. We should say, it looks like a person silhouette.
So, so. Yeah, there's stuff going on here, and this is before we started recording, I kind of was like, oh, there might be a book that I might go through and trade. I think this just might read better in trade, because the month to month it might, because it's almost so atmospheric and
You might be right, but I'm kind of liking the
but
monthly mystery of what's going on, learning each bit as it goes.
well, after talking this out with you guys, it's almost like, like when Lost was on. Like,
Yeah.
you could watch them all together, but it's almost more fun to be like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I think
talking it out.
The discussion is what makes this more readable monthly. I think if we weren't talking to each other about this, it probably would be better just to wait for the trade.
Yeah,
but...
yeah.
And so now I'm just over the course of this conversation, I'm going like, well, no, I kind of want this mystery now. Like, this is the type of stuff that I love, is trying to pick at and figure things out. So, and I'm reading an interview on here with the creators and whatnot, and I guess it started off as a young adult novel that she had an idea for.
All right.
And she just, and then they came to her and said, hey, we're doing this Hill House thing. Would you be interested? And she just found it and pitched it. And she never thought she'd be writing comics. So,
is this her first comic script work then?
I believe so.
In that case, the transition has been seamless.
It's pretty solid for a first attempt at this medium. It's pretty solid. And then the art again, it kind of fits its tone of what it's doing.
Creepy as shit.
Yeah.
It kind of gets that across.
And here's something from the interview where it said that it's very dreamlike because dreams are nonsensical, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that you can do in a comic a little bit better than in novels.
Yeah.
And so that's where the writer is saying that they sound interesting in the moment, but don't translate to writing. However, I woke up and was disturbed by the dream, so I wrote it down. Right. Well, you can describe that now to an artist, and they can put it
recreate it. Yeah.
Right. And so when you think about some of these images there, like of the deer centaur with the antlers that almost look like they're made out of fingers.
Fingers. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Or the creepy dude saying, "I hope you enjoyed the movie." Like, did he really give him that thing, or is that in one of their minds?
That's just like I always talk about this, where I think the more visual something gets, the better you can do surreal stuff. Because there's definitely times in comics where they'll try and do surreal, and I'll think this would work better as a TV show or a movie. And then of course, like you're saying here, this works better here than it would maybe just in text. And I think it's because the less of the visual information you have, the more open to interpretation it is, and because of that, it's not as specific, so you actually start to doubt if you're actually just misunderstanding what you're reading, as opposed to it being, clearly, no, this is meant to be subverting your visual expectations. And if it's like a movie, like, no, there's no mistaking what you're looking at on screen. If it's clearly meant to be weird, you understand it is weird. To a comic, to a slightly lesser extent, but you can do that with the art. But slightly lesser, because sometimes you might confuse a comic where panel to panel, like, am I understanding this transition right? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. And when you're reading just a description, like, everything's open to interpretation to your mind. So your mind might smooth it out and make it not as weird as it's supposed to be, or you might just be confused by it because it's not making sense. But when you're seeing it in front of you, you understand the weirdness of it and accept that it's supposed to be this weird.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting that this was another period piece in this line.
Yeah.
Because obviously the others we think have been the 80s. Well, I mean, this has got to be mid-90s, surely, because it mentions, one of them hasn't been the same since Cobain died. So. Yeah, probably mid 90s, maybe a little bit later.
Mid 90s, and and then you have Dollhouse Family, which thus far has been the 80s and in 18
something
hundreds.
Yeah, I'd say the primary bit is the 80s though.
Right, do you think Basket is late 70s probably? So.
Do you think there's a chance these are all set in the same universe?
Yeah. Knowing Hill and who his dad is, I wouldn't put it past him. Because
nothing's contradicted it. Nothing's about any of them has said it can't be in the same world as the other one yet.
No, so we have Sea Dogs, which ties that in, right? If we get another reference to, a Sea Dogs book or something in another one. And then, because I could definitely think that wherever Brody Island is in Basket Full of Heads, it could, why couldn't Shudder to think Pennsylvania be in that same world? And then with Dollhouse Family, it's
been in the UK,
in the UK, and they're real places, right? Like, but no, see, and I'm not. It's weird now that and my association with Pete, I used to not be a horror guy, and not that I go out and seek out like horror books and whatnot, but I am more drawn to it because of that creep, I can say. So this is weird. That, like, I'm actively enjoying these. Yeah, but I think it mostly has to do with discussion too. I think horror is one of those things where it's better when you have someone to discuss it with.
That's fair.
Yeah, check out Screams After Midnight, the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim.
What a shill.
Look at that synergistic, you know.
Well, do you know what's funny is I was just sitting with Tim, or I wasn't with my Tim. I was sitting just looking ahead at all the releases in the next like 6 months for the first half of 2020, and we actually have a lot of theater releases coming out. Over that time, and there's a few. Every so often, me and Tim can't do an episode or a movie when it first comes out because we get different release dates and it's just whatever. And there's a few of those that we're going to have to wait for the VOD or whatever. But like, there's a lot of theater releases. Like, just right from the start of the year, we got Invisible Man. We then go into Quiet Place 2's coming out. There's a Candyman remake coming up. Like, there's a really packed schedule for horror in the first half of next year. Fantasy Island's a horror movie from Blumhouse. Like,
so weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say because of Michael Pena, but also that's not the Fantasy Island I know. I know that's Nightmare Island.
So we'll see, but yes, horror's alive and well, and DC have even got their own horror like line now.
Yeah, and yeah.
So I mean, there's 3 for 3 basically at this point, right? Like,
yeah, that was gonna be my next point. It's, and and there's some I like more than the others. But they're still all real good.
I don't think any of them are. I don't think any of them are objectively better or worse than others. I think it is just taste. I think they're all really well written and drawn for what they are.
What's nice is though is that there's only like 5 or 6 total, and they've spread them out enough that even when there's like 4 running at the same time, there'll be one per week more or less. So they're nicely spread, which is good.
And what's weird is how much I seem to be enjoying Dollhouse Family. When that was the one I wasn't keen on. I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. It was this one and Basketball of Heads.
Yeah, I think Basketball of Heads for me is still my favorite of the 3. But
yeah.
I'm more of a tasting than anything.
In this week, have you read them like as we should? So you haven't read past, or have you read 3 yet, Pete?
Oh, I've not read anything from the second episode.
I've read it, Matt.
Okay, well, I'm just asking because he said it's still his favorite, so I don't know if maybe something.
No, I just read all the books for this half first, and then.
Okay, I did the same except for one because we had a swap. But,
I had time to read an extra couple to get ahead. So so busy couple of days still ahead.
Oh, of course. So what are you giving Lola Woods issue 1, Matt?
I'm gonna give us an 8.5. It was probably closer to an 8 before we started talking because I did like it, but I was on the verge of being like, well, I just might wait and get this in trade. But going back and having the discussion about it made me enjoy it more. And now I think I need to go back and revisit with some of the other things and see if that changes.
I think this will be one that the core mystery, and I think the other credit to these books is that all 3 of them are very different settings, very different styles of story.
Yeah.
Carl, what are you giving it?
Actually, a similar thing to Matt in that I'm going to bump it up half a score of what I was going to do because of the discussion. So I'm actually going to give it a 9 now.
I'll give it. I'll give it an 8. I'll give it an 8. I was kind of debate between 8 and 8.5, but I'll go with 8. So there you go. That is actually all the books for this episode. Like I said, this week is so big in books because of their schedule and not having anything next week that we had to split it in 2. So we won't have an end of episode, favorites and top 5s because we'll be doing that next episode. So this episode, of course, will go up early sometime Saturday night for everyone on Patreon. Everyone else will get it on Sunday, 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Eastern. The next episode, I won't give you an exact time because it's obviously not a set thing that we do every week, but the episode will be out sometime on Tuesday, is the plan at least. There's a small chance it may be Patreon on Tuesday and then everyone else on Wednesday, but... there is still an episode coming next week, though. We're recording next weekend because next weekend we're doing our annual episode, which means that we're doing our favourite stuff of the year. And I think I will put up some sort of form for people to fill out if they want to have an audience voted for. So for each category, we can have an audience winner as well. So I'll put that out.
Just don't forget to put that out.
Yes, I'll put that out probably on Wednesday is the plan, and you'll have about 3 days to fill it in. and send in your picks, and we'll have winners for each of the categories. I'm going to have to actually sort of skim last year's. I always forget our format. I always forget which awards we do and how we do it. So I have to always skim the previous year's episode.
I think we kind of did the roundtable discussion to make the top 10.
Yeah.
I think that's what we did.
Of the actual comics. And then
we did, because I wrote hard for certain ones.
I think we throw out our own personal favourite writers, artists. We have a bit of discussion and then pick one. And then we actually... Yeah. And then the actual top 10 comics of the year, though, of the series.
We debate.
Yeah.
But is that weird? I mean, because basically, like, Connor has to accept some Bendis stuff's going to be there, right? Like,
right? Yeah.
We can't just leave off every Bendis book off the top 10.
That said, I mean, I appreciate having a group one, but I also like having our own because we all have very different tastes.
Yeah.
We should do our own. If we do our own events and we give them to Pete, and Pete does his system they does to add things up and see what it comes out at with a combined one.
Yeah.
We could do that, yeah.
Because mine might be very Bendis heavy. Who knows?
But probably will be, because he's writing all the Superman books.
I know. Well, not just that. The little book called Naomi came out.
Naomi's very good. Yeah, it's very good. So we'll be doing our annual episode next week, but that's not the next episode, because the next episode is the second half of this week's books. Both of these episodes are numbered, though. It's not part 1 and 2. They're going to be 186 and 187.
Should be 0.5. Let's be honest.
It's not because
it just wants to inflate those numbers.
I don't want to inflate those numbers. None of my systems allow for decimals. Okay, like literally.
Yeah, so wait, if we had to attribute a filmmaker to each of our personalities, Pete is definitely James Cameron, because the fact that he just says his system doesn't account for decimals is something James Cameron would say.
No, look, if I put in a decimal now, then every single episode number on my spreadsheet is going to have 0.00 after it, and I don't want that. So no, it's going to be 186 and 187. Okay. End of discussion.
That's a shirt. We need to get the As Interstellar Taught Us shirt. And now we need... My system does not allow for decimal points. That's...
No decimals. So annual number 4 will be next week. But the next episode is actually going to be the second half of the books, and we'll do our best of the week at the end of that episode, of course, which will include all these books too. So we don't have our usual wrap-up part of this episode. However,
so we're done.
We're pretty much done. Still a meaty episode, though. We went so long on Doomsday Clock that was still a very lengthy discussion.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
Yeah. Before we go, though, Matt, did you watch the AEW Dynamite this week?
Oh, shoot, I did.
It's fine. I'll piss off if you want to do that, because I got food waiting.
Well, let's wrap, and then we can talk real quick, Pete.
Okay. I'll wrap up the show, and then we'll just record separately, like weirdos.
Yeah, real quick.
I would have just left. I mean, it's fine.
No.
Right, okay. Look, okay. So, of course, let us know what you thought of the books we talked about. The comments, like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can ding the bell on YouTube for the notifications. Make sure you rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts to support us, because that makes more people find us, because they spread us out and recommend us and all that kind of thing. You can support us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to do that financially, for as little as $1 per month, and you get bonus outtakes, you get the wrestling discussions that me and Matt do, and you get extra episodes of some of our movie podcasts and stuff like that. So go and have a look-see and see if you're interested in doing that. And thank you to our Patreon producers for the month of December. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess. That means they're all patrons at the $20 and up tier, so thank you to them. That's basically it. We mentioned the Rise of Skywalker review that was lengthy. That was all 3 of us, so that's up if you want to go check out that. And in terms of anything else, me and Tim are doing a lot of Christmas horror movies on Screams right now. Maybe that's of interest, I don't know, but go and have a look-see. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, guys, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
And like Dr. Manhattan said, everything ends.